Hello and welcome to the Township of Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for Wednesday, October 16th. We're going to call ourselves to order here at 4:47 p.m. And just before we start, I'll acknowledge that Councillor Bell is not with us yet. If he can join us, he's on duty in Ottawa as a firefighter. He'll join us via Zoom, and we'll make a note of that in the agenda when he does pop on. Good. First item on our agenda, or second item on the agenda, is our national anthem. But before we do the national anthem, what I'd like to do is have a moment of silence in honor of a recent passing of one of our past employees through our church. So what I'd like to propose is that we rise, as we would for the national anthem. I'm going to ask Councillor Moore to say a few words. We'll have a moment of silence and then roll into the national anthem. It's good? Okay. So please rise.
It is with heavy hearts that we announce the sudden passing of Roy Church, who provided 40 years of service to the community as part of the Ross and Whitewater Region Fire Departments, and a minimum of 15 years with the Township of Public Works Department. Roy was a dedicated, compassionate, and generosity individual. He committed to service extended beyond his professional life. He was always offering a helping hand to those in need. He was known for his humility, kindness, and unwavering dedication to the well-being of others. Roy is survived by his beloved wife, his children, and his grandchildren, an extended family, who were his pride and joy. He also leaves behind many friends and colleagues who will forever cherish his memory. Roy's remarkable life of service will never be forgotten. His courage, compassion, and commitment to the community leave an indelible mark on all who knew him. Rest in peace, Roy. Your legacy and service will love forever.
Thank you for that, Councillor Moore. And next is our land acknowledgement, and I've asked Councillor Tabbert if she would do the land acknowledgement today.
As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of the Township of Whitewater Region and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Omamiwini Algonquin people. We thank the Omamiwini people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of Indigenous people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years.
Thank you, Councillor Tabbert. Next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda, and the recommendation has been amended. I believe it is correct online, and I'll read the new recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approved the agenda for the meeting of October 16th, 2024, and that the meeting be extended as required to consider all agenda items. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Trim. Is there any changes or amendments to the agenda as seen by members of Council? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favour? And it's carried. Next item on the agenda is October 2nd minutes. The recommendation is the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the October 2nd, 2024 minutes. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Olmsted, seconded by Councillor Tabbert. Is there any errors or omissions that have been noted in the minutes as provided by the clerk? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favour? It's carried. And I'll also note that there is one set of committee and board minutes that have been attached to the agenda for Council as well as the public's review. We have those provided by the Muskrat Watershed Council dated September 16th. And I'll give Councillor Tabbert if she has any comments she wants to make with respect to those minutes.
Nothing.
Perfect, okay. Next item is number 5, disclosures of interest. Is there any disclosures with respect to anything on the agenda tonight from members of Council? Okay, I see none, and we'll just have to get the clerk to remind me if Councillor Bell does pop on, we'll have to make sure that we have his acknowledgement as well. Good. Next item is presentations. On the agenda, it's item 6.1, and it's our draft budget public meeting. And I'll note, just for those present and those that might be watching, we are going to defer this item, as noted in the agenda, until 6 p.m. That will ensure that there's no conflict with people returning home from work. So at 6 p.m. we are going to commence item 6.1. We'll pause wherever we are in the remainder of the agenda and come back to the budget public meeting as per the agenda. Good? Good. Next item is the mayor's address. And I have an address prepared. So since our last council meeting on October 2nd, I attended 8 meetings on behalf of council. As county councillor, I attended 2 committee meetings, as well as a long-term care webinar discussing municipally operated long-term care facilities. I'd like to share some details with you and our public on some of these meetings that I attended. On October 4th, I met with the executive assistant to our MPP to discuss priorities including water and wastewater affordability here in Cobden. I shared our task force recommendations and asked the MPP's office to continue to advocate to the Ministry of Infrastructure for additional capital funds to help reduce the burden on our users. We will continue our efforts with the province. On October 6th, I attended the Beachburg Fair Volunteer Appreciation Barbecue with the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Tabbert. A great end-of-season event. A huge thanks to all the volunteers who worked so hard to pull off this fair, as well as all of our other volunteer events that we have across the township. I also heard informally that the Fibre Festival that they held the last Sunday of September was a huge success with over 450 visitors, and they are already planning to hold it again next year. So great news, yet another very precious activity for our community. Thank you to Brenna and her team, and looking forward to all their plans for the next season. On October 10th, I attended an Advantage Ontario webinar in my capacity as county councillor. It was very interesting, so much so that I wanted to share some information about long-term care. And just to review, there are 2 long-term care facilities within the county of Renfrew which are municipally run and operated, Miramichi and Bonnechere Manor. One interesting point that was made in this presentation was the growing demand for supportive seniors housing. Specifically, it's that seniors housing focused on those who need some supports to remain independent but do not necessarily need long-term care. They can't afford retirement housing or private home care. So it's that across the continuum of supports for those in that situation, it's that specific gap. Not quite long-term care, can't afford a retirement home or private home care. Where do they get their support? And that's called supportive seniors housing. It is noted that we are in short supply, not only here in the county, but across the province. And the need is huge. And they estimated that it's $62 a day to provide supportive seniors housing versus $200 a day for long-term care. So from a prioritization of our long-term care assets, they should be reserved for those most in need of that type of resource, where and seniors supportive housing could fill that gap. So it was I know that there's more discussions at county level. In fact, we had some today at Health Committee. And I just wanted to share this, given our forecasted rate of growth of our seniors in our community is very significant. So just another thing for you to be aware of. October 11th, I attended a planning session with the Labour Market Group of Renfrew and Lanark. The speaker was David Coletto of Abacus Consulting, and it was an excellent presentation and helped to describe the workforce impacts that we're having here in the county of Renfrew with lower than average immigration rates and an aging population. So there is a lot of municipal staff there as well, so I'm sure we'll hear something come back up either through the CAO net or the clerk net. October 11th, I attended a meeting with the Public School Board representatives, the Director of Community Services for the County of Renfrew, about how to bring a not-for-profit provider to our region to provide full-time as well as before and after school childcare to Whitewater region. So very much an exploratory meeting, but bringing the parties to the table to have that discussion. The need and the demand is there from a daycare perspective, specifically here in Whitewater region. It's a matter of us securing the federal and provincial $11 a day spots. Those are controlled. So we'll continue to work on this opportunity, and when I have more information, I'll share, but we're working on it. Good, that ends my mayor's report for today. Is there any questions, or does that stem anything from council? Good. Next, we'll move into public comments, and I'll ask the clerk, are there any registered public comments for tonight?
We received none.
Perfect. And then we get to move into reports. The first one is 9.1, which is our Water and Wastewater Task Force final report. And just before we get into the resolution, this is the report, 167 pages, an excellent read. Very, very happy with that result. Our recommendation before us is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region receive the final report of the Water Wastewater Task Force, and 2, direct staff to include the recommendations in our 2025 departmental work plan. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Olmsted, seconded by Councillor Moore. Excellent. And before we get into council debate on that, I'd like to propose that we give the floor to the chair for the task force report and our mover. So Councillor Olmsted, over to you.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I do have some points that I want to present to council. So I'll go through them in order.
Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, Councillor Olmsted, my mistake. I should have given staff the opportunity to speak first. Now I'm going to come back to you.
Great, thank you.
Good. Thank you. So, Superintendent Nicholson, if you can provide the staff report on the thing, and then we'll get into our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So the Water and Wastewater Task Force was formed in response to increasing water and wastewater rates and the resulting affordability constraints faced by many residents. The task force that was formed was comprised of 5 community members and 2 members of council with support from key township staff members. The community members included Randy Keith, Robin Voisey, Ann Guest, Julie Hennessy, and Jim LeBeau, with Councillor Chris Olmsted acting as the lead chair and Councillor Mike Moore as the co-chair. Throughout the task force mandate, meetings were supported by township staff, including Manager of Public Works Lane Cloro and myself, Environmental Services Superintendent. The task force members met 7 times throughout its mandate, which included 6 sit-down sessions and a tour of each of the water and wastewater treatment plants. Throughout 4 of the sessions, staff presented key information about the water and wastewater systems, which included which included a technical overview of each of the 4 water and wastewater treatment plants, as well as their associated collection and distribution systems, a discussion of the operational challenges that are faced by the systems, such as inflow and infiltration problems, system capacity issues, managing growth, and water quality. During one of the sessions, the treasurer provided the task force with detailed financial information on the systems, including discussion on the operating and capital costs that go into running each of the systems, and just generally how these expenses are funded. In one session, we included a guest speaker from Watson Associates Economists Limited, who explained how and why the township undertakes these periodic rate studies on the water and wastewater systems. Specifically, this session included a thorough discussion on how the water and wastewater rates are currently set in Whitewater Region. And then we discussed other kinds of systems that can be used to set rates, including metering. The discussions focused heavily on how rates can be set to ensure that they are equitable for all residential and commercial water users. In sessions 4, 5, and 6, the task force members proposed many solutions to the issues discussed throughout the earlier sessions. These solutions were incorporated into 45 recommendations, and the recommendations were edited and voted on by each of the task force members to be brought forward in the final task force report for consideration by council. The task force also developed timelines for implementation and set priority levels for each of the items. Throughout the month of September, staff pulled together all of the information that was discussed during these sessions and the tour into the final water and wastewater task force report, which is what we are being presented tonight. Initially provided in draft to council and the task force members on October 2nd, staff have received no requested amendments to the report from council or the task force members. So in the final version, the key recommendations in the report include immediate actions such as enhancing public education, improving communication during water-related incidents, creating bylaws, exploring alternative funding options, investigating metered rate structures as well as flat rate classes, and undertaking an independent audit, third-party review of the Cobden Wastewater Treatment Upgrade Project. Staff have already begun working on implementing several of the task force's recommendations, including developing a comprehensive sewer use bylaw that will help to ensure the continued operation of the Cobden Wastewater Treatment Plant and its collection system for years to come. We've also begun developing a notification system where users can sign up to receive notifications about the water system when water quality issues arise or when issues like water main breaks occur. As part of the 2024 rate study that Watson Associates is currently undertaking for the township, they have been asked to reevaluate the current rate class groupings and multiplication factors to help establish rates that are more equitable for users. Looking forward into 2025, staff are already beginning to incorporate recommendations into the capital budget and including them in our departmental work plans as we develop them. Specifically, recommendation 3.2 in the report is to examine opportunities to fund the water and wastewater systems through avenues other than user fees. As a result of these discussions generated by the task force members during some of the earlier sessions, finance staff identified that a portion of the OCIF funding that the township receives from the province can specifically be directed to the water and wastewater systems. This funding is generated as a result of the significant core infrastructure valuation of the township's water and wastewater infrastructure. Pending approval of the 2025 budget, this single change will allow the township to direct approximately $378,820 newly to the water and wastewater systems, whereas previously the system was primarily funded by user fees and periodic grants. Allocating these funds to the water and wastewater systems will allow the township to begin to stabilize future rate increases. So going forward, the next steps for staff in relation to the task force will be to continue to evaluate and explore the implementation of each of the recommendations and incorporate them into our 2025 departmental work plans.
Good, thank you. Appreciate that, Superintendent Nicholson.
She did.
Very good. Good. Now I'll come back to Councillor Olmsted. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thanks, Deanna. That was very thorough, and I can probably throw out about half of what I'm going to say. Just kidding. I am proud to share the work today of the Whitewater Task Force as we receive the final report. The report, as Deanna said, contains months of hard work, lots of analysis, lots of collaboration amongst the task force. I believe we've developed a set of strong practical recommendations that will benefit not only our community, but surrounding communities that are going to go through the same type of exercise that we've gone through in infrastructure, specifically to water and wastewater. As Deanna said, we have achieved a few quick wins already, which she's highlighted. I'll go into a little bit more detail maybe. Probably the biggest one, and you mentioned it last, was the distribution of provincial asset management funding, OSIF funding, to the tune of just under $380,000, and you'll see that in the draft budget for 2025. And we expect that number to increase over the next few years as well. So I think we've got about 5 years of expected increases, which will be attributed directly to water, wastewater. Another quick win was we proposed a transfer from taxation to water operating in the 2025 budget for year-round water access to the fire department, and that was discussed in budget as well. So that, again, that's not just on the users, that's on all of the taxpayers of Whitewater region. And as Deanna mentioned, a review of the current rate classes as well, which I think if it's not undertaken now, it will be early in the new year. We've also asked to provide an update report to council on the construction progress and financial status, specifically of the Cobden Wastewater Treatment Plant. And I think that will be coming sometime in November. So we'll have a further update to where that sits. And at this time, and at the discretion of council, I'd request that we prepare an FAQ document regarding water and wastewater rates. It's something that I know when we develop one for other areas of the municipality, our ratepayers really hang on to those frequently asked question portions. So as we've fleshed out a lot of different subjects with respect to water and wastewater, lots of things come, like every day items come up that the seven of us had no idea about, and they're just regular items that I think the taxpayer could really use that information to help them understand how the system works, what they're paying for, what portion of the funding goes towards whatever asset. And lastly, specifically on the wastewater treatment plant, obviously remains a top priority for the township as we work towards resolving the matter in the best interest of our residents. The township is working with the legal team. We have retained a third-party expert to inform the township's ongoing decisions regarding the Cobden wastewater treatment plant. The technical aspect, including design, construction, operations, and performance, and this includes all parties. So the township is engaged in this ongoing process in accordance with the construction contract. The process is confidential to not prejudice any potential legal positions of the township and to protect the rights of all parties. So I just want to note that the township recognizes the importance of transparency and open communication with our residents. While we are committed to providing updates and ensuring the community is informed, no further information regarding that process can be shared at this time, given the confidential nature of this ongoing process. So hopefully that's as clear as we can be about the wastewater treatment plant. And having said that, I am committed as chair and Mike as co-chair to keep this on the forefront for council. There's 45 recommendations. We're already in action on half a dozen of them. We've asked for this to be part of the departmental's work plans for 2025, and I have seen some of staff already acting on it. So I will ensure that on behalf of the wastewater task force that this will be a top priority. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Councillor Olmsted. I'm just going to come back. You asked for 2 additional items to be included for our consideration tonight. Yep. Can you just highlight those again, just so the clerk also has those?
Yeah, so the 2 additional items was an FAQ document regarding the water and wastewater rates. So just a document. And I think that should be shared with whether it goes into the water billing. So just better communication. And the second one is to provide a report to council on the construction progress and financial status of the Cobden wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah. So in addition to the 45 recommendations, those are 2 additional ones from you as chair.
Yes, please.
Good. You got them?
I'm sorry, can you, construction progress and?
Financial status update.
Good. I'm just going to pause for a second and note that in the middle of your presentation, we had Councillor Bell join us virtually. So he's here and we'll take note. But I'll just ask you, Councillor Bell, in terms of declarations, is there any declarations you need to make for anything on the agenda tonight?
No declarations tonight.
Perfect. Thank you. Good. What I'd like to do next to go to the seconder. Councillor Moore, is there anything you want to add to Councillor Olmsted's or comments there?
Just a comment. It was a short time and we took in a lot of information, including the tours, with a lot of us not have seen some of this stuff before. It was great to do it, but I couldn't imagine what the rest of our party was thinking when they went through some of these buildings. I would just like to say publicly that thank you to everyone who let their name stand and continue to force this council to follow through. So I think it's great, and it'll be an advantageous to this council to push forward and make sure it stays in the forefront. So thank you all very much for taking part.
Thanks, Councillor Moore. Now, I know that we recognize we have two members of the task force here present with us today, and just before I allow the rest of council to deliberate, I want to make it give you an opportunity to speak. So, Robin, is there anything you want to share? And if you do, I'm going to ask you to come to the mic. If you don't, it's okay. You don't need to.
No, I'm just happy. I'm just happy with the progress. It sounds like things are moving forward, so it's very positive to see.
Perfect. And I'll just note, because you're not mic'd up, that you're happy with the process, you're happy it's going forward, but you don't want to make any additional comments. And sorry, and I'll turn to the second member, is Randy Keith. Would you like to say anything, Randy?
No, it was just quite interesting to sit in on it, and the tours of the plants were really interesting. I had seen the old plant years ago, and to see the new one and see how it operates, it's amazing as far as I'm concerned. And it was an honor to be on the task force. So thank you very much, and good luck going forward with all this.
Perfect.
I guess would be here, but she's too sick, you wouldn't want her here.
And we'll just note, a member of the public just shared with us one other member of the task force, which is Mrs. Ann Guest. Couldn't be here tonight due to sickness. I suspect she might be online if she's feeling any better. If not, she'll catch it at another time. But thank you for sharing your input. We appreciate. Now, what I'd like to do now is continue with the deliberations of council. Questions from other members about anything in the report, any comments about it, questions, concerns, now's your opportunity to speak. So, any other members of council? Councillor Tabbert.
Yes, I found the report very interesting. I did review it, and I do have a few questions regarding the recommendations, if I may, Your Honor, or Your Mayor. The first is 3.4. Require the fire department to pay for access to year-round water with this revenue directed to the water budget. If you're going to charge the fire department, this is how I'm taking it, you're charging the fire department to take water to fight fires within the towns of Cobden, Beachburg, and Haley Station, where the fire hydrants are. We're already paying for that water, and now we have to pay the fire department more money to fight the fires where they're taking the water from. Am I understanding that correctly, or is this an extra charge when it's outside of the users?
Yeah, maybe
Perfect.
I'll
CAO, I'll let you defer. You can answer it or defer to another staff.
yeah, so maybe I'll just a quick synopsis is that so the tanker vehicles of the fire department that are located in the hamlets or the villages that have water service, they take a large sum of water to fight fires throughout the community. So we've tried to project how much water that is. Difficult, trust me, it's difficult. And allocate a transfer from the fire department budget, operating budget, from that to the water wastewater user. Because right now the facilities are only paying a commercial or a one-time fee similar to another commercial business, whereas they're probably taking more water than that. So we're trying to account for that additional water. So that's in our draft budget. It will be deliberated by this council later on in November and presented tonight as part of our public meeting. So we could deliberate more on that recommendation as part of the budget, but that was the synopsis of that recommendation from the task force. Thanks.
Continue?
You can.
Okay. 4.3, why, under the rate structure, why are we asking that only all municipal buildings be metered? If you're going to, I didn't understand why just municipal buildings.
Please, CAO.
Yeah, and maybe I was there during the deliberations of the task force when we were going through each of these recommendations. So they deliberated whether or not we should meter all buildings, or just commercial buildings, or just industrial buildings, or just municipal buildings. And this is the final recommendation from the task force. The recommendation under rate structures is to meter all high commercial and municipal buildings, and priority is high and medium. So that's the recommendation from the task force, and they've deliberated and they're presenting this to council. But they struggled with that. Should we meter all properties? Because there's costing associated with metering all properties. So the sum of it was that they meter all municipal buildings. The further basis is that, again, our arena structures, where we're paying water and wastewater, we're again paying a one high commercial fee, I think it is. We're 3 times? Yep. 3 high commercial. So we're trying to figure out a way that we could better transfer money from our facilities into the water, wastewater budgets, and this would be one mechanism to do that, where these facilities are being used by all of our residents. Thanks.
Just going to pause there. If there's no other staff input, I just want to give the chair, if there was any additional comment you wanted to make.
No, the CAO did a great job of describing that. Thank you.
Perfect. And you're satisfied? Yes. Good. Is there another question?
I have 2 more.
Please. This
Okay.
is why we're here.
Under other recommendations, 5.6. Okay, yeah, I'm going backwards, but that's okay. Explore the tendering or sharing of services operations staff with other municipalities. We have Aqua who does it, so how would we share? I mean, are we saying share our Aqua with the other departments or with the other municipalities? Or, I mean, because they also run their own, or they have Aqua or another company running theirs. So how would we sort of share that?
CAO, you or staff, as you see.
Yeah, I could defer to maybe Elaine to provide some input on that.
Yeah, so currently now the township obtains services from Aqua, but there's other companies that do it in Ontario. So the task force, their recommendation was to explore tendering the service for water and wastewater for the township, and also sharing, potentially going in-house and potentially sharing services with other municipalities.
Okay, I think that would be more expensive, but that's just me. Because, I mean, you have to get all these experts. Okay, anyways.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask if the chair or the co-chair wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, and I just want to be careful. The last discussion that we had regarding this, was that in closed session or not? Regarding Aqua?
No, we spoke about the Aqua tentative costing for 2025 as part of our last budget meeting, so.
And the extension of the...
Yeah, so there was a report subsequent to the budget that spoke about extending till December of this year.
Okay.
And staff are currently working with Aqua and negotiating with them for a further contract.
Right, so, okay. I just want to be careful that my memory is getting bad when we were in closed or not closed. So that basically is an extension of that meeting that we had discussing Aqua and the contract. So we extended that contract to the end of 2024. We're looking at it for 2025, and if you remember, we're looking at how many years we needed to extend that contract. So that really dovetails nicely into this recommendation.
My final one is actually going backwards to 5.3, is advocate to the County of Renfrew to prepare an annual county-wide comparison report detailing water, wastewater rates in each municipality. The county doesn't have any wastewater or water plants, so why are we asking them to take on a responsibility that the municipalities with water and wastewater should be taking on?
Good. CAO, you want to try first, now go to the chair first? Yeah, chair.
Yeah, I'll take part of that. As you know, the county is advocating on our behalf with respect to upper tier governments So this is an issue that isn't just in Whitewater region, not just one or two municipalities. You're going to see this as a widespread, county-wide, province-wide, probably Canadian-wide issue. So I don't think it can be solely on the responsibility on the backs of municipalities. I think we need upper-tier governments to get involved in this. There was a report, I shared some of the details of the report with council. I think it's a North American report stating what what the average homeowner is looking at in different regions across the country, and it was a percentage of their take-home pay. And if you're below, I think it was 8% of your take-home pay, you're okay. And if it's above 8%, you're in stressed. And if it's above 10%, you're in dire need. What was the actual name of that? I always forget the name of that.
It was an affordability report.
The affordability report. So in our region, everybody's above that 10% rate, so in dire need. And you're going to see that widespread across Renfrew County. So that's one reason we decided to try to get Renfrew County to advocate on our behalf.
Thank you very much.
No problem. No, I'm going to see if we got anything to add. No, good. I'll just also, and I don't want to bore people with the things that are going on at the county level, but just to highlight that, yes, there is some role for especially those county members who have water and wastewater. That work is currently ongoing. The Association of Municipalities is doing a province-wide analysis of water and wastewater systems that started at AMO conference this summer and is continuing to report back to AMO, I think, by Christmas, early January. So that's working at the provincial level. And at the federal level, we're just waiting to see, we proposed a resolution to look at it nationally. That resolution gets viewed by the board of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities this fall. So we should have news come the new year as to whether or not they've agreed that that's something they want to look at a nationally level. So the advocacy roles that we're playing, this 5.3 kind of highlights that we are working at other levels of government to also continue to advocate on behalf of our residents. Fair, I didn't, good. Is there any other questions, Councillor Tabor? Good, thank you. Any other members of council? Any questions or concerns with any of the items listed here? Excellent. I made lots of notes, but I don't know if I think that there are any comments that I haven't No, I would just, I would echo on to Councillor Talbot brought it already about metering, and just the note that the recommendation in here at 4.4 is that meter all users subject to the township receiving full funding for the purchase and installation of those water meters. And that's an acknowledgement. We can't burden the taxpayers, the ratepayers, with an additional cost. I can appreciate the recommendation. And even once those are installed, we'd still have to then operate and maintain them, which would come at some cost. But if the opportunity presents itself, at least we have the recommendation here as a reference point. Good. Doesn't trigger anything. I'm not seeing any other comments. Yes, Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, just on that one in particular, that was one probably the most discussed item with respect to the task force. And it was, we put it on the board, we took it off, put it on, we took it off. And at the end of the day, we left it on. I think really because the thought process was metering will get people to actually use less, and that would mean less chemicals, less of everything, right, which would help reduce costs. So the thought process was the user cannot pay, we wouldn't put the pay of the installation of the meter and whatnot on the user, but if we were fully funded to do that, then maybe it could be a win. So that's why it's on the page. Thank you.
Thank you. And you gave me time to look up one more. Yeah, should have been quiet. 2.13, and that talks about sump pumps and roof leaders currently tied into the system. And I've been told before why that's important. Maybe I could get staff to tell me, why is that a recommendation? Why is it a 1 to 3 year recommended implementation?
I'll defer to Superintendent Nicholson. Thanks.
Yeah, so this is an item that was included because sump pumps and roof leaders are a large source of water that currently makes it into our sanitary sewer system. So if they're connected to sump pump or leaders connected into your wastewater collection system, that volume is going into our plant and is stressing our plant needlessly. So the objective would be to get that water out of the sewer system and into our storm collection system so that, and then storm is directed away and isn't forced to be processed through the wastewater treatment plant in Cobden. So it's an important way to get rid of the inflow and infiltration from problems.
Good, I'm going to press a little bit. So I understand it. We're cleaning rainwater and groundwater, and we don't need to be doing that. That you know, not only is a stress on the system, but we're paying to do something we don't need to do. Okay, I acknowledge that. Why is it a 1 to 3 year timeline versus immediate?
Yeah, so that exercise is very intensive. There's staff time and also with a consultant, to actually investigate what areas of the actual township of Cobden, for example, is the most affected, and what and also what is the solution to take it off the wastewater, and is there storm sewers to put it in. And one of this item too would also help with the actual the total financial cost, as less water being in the system, with less wastewater that will be treated. Then going back to it, yeah. So in one of the investigations that you will see that staff have been is actually doing a master servicing plan of the system, to determine what system of the actual so what area areas of the system is worse, that has some pumps. One investigation that some municipalities do actually go from house to house to actually determine if there's some pump connector or not. That is a huge task that we'll be undertaking going forward.
Good. I'm just going to push one more time, sorry, and then I'll release the floor to Councillor Trim. Sorry. And I acknowledge the requirement for us to get a holistic perspective on it and to analyze it, master servicing. But I think if the residents understand, if we agree to this frequently asked questions sheet and we can explain it to them in a short manner, some people may, through their own initiative, go out and remove their gutters and take their sump pumps and reroute them out of the sewer and into their yard, or another solution that might just be local. I understand we need to have a holistic plan, but maybe we could do some portion of it, encourage voluntary compliance, yes, in order to support the greater user. It would give some opportunity for us to actually take action through the individual ratepayers. So I would recommend that we consider this one, portions of it, from an immediate perspective, with the acknowledgement that the whole plan may be a 1 to 3 year rollout. Is that fair? I'm getting nods from around the table. CAO?
Yeah, I would just say we'll take note of that, and we'll include it in the 2025 work plan to be included, and maybe a scoped version of something like that. Some communication strategies around it. Great, thanks.
Perfect, good. And Councillor Trim, I recognize you.
Yes, I just wondered if there's been ever been an analysis of how bad the problem is by subtracting the water usage from the waste, to figure out how much extra water is being introduced into the system.
I can take that. Yeah. So during the wastewater plant upgrade, during the environmental assessment phase, that was looked at to determine what part of town was like wastewater, and the overall comparison of the actual water output from the water plant and what's actually going to the wastewater plant.
But just to clarify, that kind of information would be looked at in terms of that master servicing plan.
That's
be able
correct.
to identify where that infiltration, that the I&I analysis, infiltration and inflow, where is it coming from surplus to the water that we're generating? So I'm getting the
That's
nod
correct,
from
yeah.
staff. Okay, good. Is that good? Good. Any other subsequent discussion? Good. Just before we call for a vote on this item, I just want to publicly thank our task force. Again, we've asked volunteers from the community, and you'll note in the terms of reference, they didn't get paid anything for all of the time that they've input into attending these discussions, reviewing the background documents, providing their input, coming back tonight to listen to us. Thank you. And this 167 pages is a very valuable way for us to lead forward, to be able to influence how impacted our ratepayers are. It doesn't conclude the situation. It really just formalizes the steps going forward. So I appreciate that, and to both the chairs, your time and effort, staff that you put into this. And Rebecca's very nice final product. Good. So what I'll do is I'm going to I'll call for a vote. Right after the vote, I'm going to ask if the two members present would mind coming up and we'll get a photo. So you can't just run out just as soon as we're done here. And that will conclude that part. So good. If there's no other questions, good, we will call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Good. Unanimously. Excellent. Before we move to the next item, I will ask Robin and Randy to come forward, as well as Councillor Olmsted, Councillor Moore.
You're going to hold them.
Oh, okay, good.
See. Not good at this little thing. Playing the whole time.
Probably needs to see you guys.
No, they don't. I like them in my. In yesterday.
The clerk has asked me that we're all going to hold these.
Oh,
Okay. As it looks like a report. The cover of a report.
She must have known it was already
You have to look like it's heavy.
You want me to block you out?
I want to take off my glasses.
Oh, yeah.
Just a second. Sorry. Wait. I'm sorry.
Excellent, okay. Thank you very much.
Not crazy. Okay. And we'll note that the missing members. Perfect, good. Thank you so much, Robin. Appreciate your time.
You can keep those for a souvenir if you want.
It's very interesting to read.
Yeah.
That was nice and colorful.
I've never paid attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Excellent. And just a thank you again. We appreciate your time, and the community appreciates your time. Good. Next item on our agenda. We're going to keep moving. 2023 year-end report. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the 2023 audited financial statements prepared by McKillican and Associates and accept the management letter for information purposes. And 2, the 2023 development charge report. And 3, the 2023 annual report on building permit fees. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Olmsted, Councillor Trim. The treasurer gets to speak to this one.
I will start. Thank you. So this report encompasses 3 pieces to kind of tie up the 2023 year end. I know we're a good chunk through 2024, and it's been a challenge to get it completed, but it is completed now. So the Municipal Act requires us to, every municipality to every year, have an audited financial statement prepared. And our outside auditor is McKillican and Associates, and Rory McKillican is actually here today, so he will actually speak to the financial statements and answer any questions council has. The other 2 reports are the Development Charges Study, or Development Charges Act, which requires us to actually view what development charges were collected in the year and what is going to be used for those development charges. So I'll speak to that report after the presentation of the financial statements. And the final one is the Building Code Act portion, which talks about building fees, construction value, number of permits come in, and I have a nice graph that shows where we sit in the overall scope of all the municipalities in the county. but I'll ask that Rory come up and do a presentation to the financial statements. Thank you.
Electronic copy of the statements to look at. So if we turn to page, I guess the first page, page 1, which is kind of gets jumped over, but it's pretty important. It's the independent auditor's report. I'm just going to briefly go over it at a high level. Just identifies this entities whose financial statements have been audited. The year end, which is December 31st, 2023. And then,
Sorry, Roy, just to pause, I want to make sure that we're aligning, just because of the complexity of the documents. Can you just confirm we've got the right thing up for the public?
No, it would be the next page. One more? That's 2. So I'm just referring to the, I guess on there's the top corner number.
No, that's perfect. We just wanted to make sure the public could follow along. Thank you.
So anyway, the most important, I guess, this part is it just states the auditor's conclusion, and in this case, we do believe the financial statements are presented fairly in all material specs, which is a clean audit report for the municipality. Basis of opinion paragraph, it states that the audit was conducted at the generally accepted auditing standards, and we believe the audit evidence we've obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis of an opinion. Management's responsibility for the financial statements, and this states that ultimately those charged with governance are responsible for overseeing the township's financial reporting process. And then the last paragraph is the auditor's responsibility. And our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance the statements are free from misstatement. And a misstatement is considered material if individually or aggregate, it could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decisions of the users. Page 2 provides us even more detail related to the audit report. So we'll move on to page 3, which is the consolidated statement of financial position. I'll just move down through it. If anyone has any questions, let me know. The first area is financial assets, which is cash equivalents. Cash did increase by almost 1.2 million. This is related to the surplus for the current year, new loan that was obtained, also increase in the deferred revenue for the year, provide increase in the cash balance. We look at the statement of cash flow, provide a bit more detail on that, breakdown of how that was generated. Taxes receivable did increase by about 326,000. The outstanding amount's about 9.3 compared to 7.3 from the previous year. This amount is coming down though. The amount is going to, just with taxation being higher every year as a percentage, it will increase. Accounts receivable, there was a small increase of about 56,000, relates to water and sewer of 206, HST of 145,000, and cop and water of 318,000. And then the last item is the investments, and this is the Ottawa Power River investment. There's no change year over year. In the liability area, accounts payable and accrued liabilities, there was a decrease of just about $1 million. Trades payable came in at 644,000, building permit deposits of 79,000, overtime and vacation of 120. The decrease is mainly due to the prior year having trade payables related to construction work at year end. So that was really, this year got back down to a bit of a normal level. Last year was a bit escalated. The next item is Ontario Infrastructure and Land Corporation. This was advances. They were termed out toward in the year to long-term debt. It consisted of Olmsted Road of 2.4 million and Cameron Street reconstruction of 700,000. Deferred revenue obligatory reserve funds. This consists of the gas tax of 104,000, development charges of 278,000, and OSIF of 120,000. As I mentioned, net long-term liabilities, there was new debt of 5 million. As brought in or occurred by the township, but there was also payments of 787,000 of principal the township made. And the last item, asset retirement obligations. This relates to the landfill closure and post-closure care costs. There's an increase of just over $71,000. That's based on an independent engineering report. So net financial assets, liabilities for the municipality were $12,200,000 just over $36,000 for the year. Non-financial assets, these are assets that are not used in, will not be turned to cash or used for cash flow, but used in the operations of the township. Tangible capital assets did remain fairly consistent, but there was additions of just over 2.1 million, but also amortization of just about 1.9 million. The additions related to land purchase for the trail of 246,000, Cameron Earl construction of 739,000, Zion line of just over 200,000, arena compressor of 107,000, water treatment plant of 150,000. Inventory of supplies, there was a large decrease of 244,000. It consists of gravel of 52,000, sand of 40,000, and fuel of 22,000. The prior year did have a large gravel stockpile that was reduced. And the last item was prepaid expenses, and this consists of subscriptions and maintenance contracts for the current upcoming year. So total accumulated surplus for the municipality did increase by about 1.1 million. That accumulated surplus is comprised, as we can see, of equity and tangible capital assets, the Whitewater Region Library Board, and the Whitewater Historical Society, reserve and reserve funds, and then the unfunded asset retirement obligation related to landfills is backed out. So I'm not sure if anyone has any questions related to the statement of financial position.
I'll open it up. Is there any questions so far from every member of council? I know it's a whole bunch of information. No questions at this time? I do have one, if I can ask.
Yep.
Deferred revenue. You had mentioned that there was DCs included in that deferred revenue?
Development charges?
Development charges, yes. So they're not recognized as revenue until we go to use them? They're just held as deferred revenue?
Correct. It's technically an obligatory reserve fund, which has outside restrictions, so that it won't show as revenue in the statements. If we actually flip over to the note, which is, if we go to page 11,
Good, you there? Good.
Oh. Page 11?
Top right corner.
Oh.
Keep going down.
Top right.
Top right corner, you're on 6.
Good.
Oh, so that perfect. So you can see that's our opening balances, and then the revenue that's received during the year, and then the transfer either to tangible capital assets or operations. So those two transfer amounts is only thing that will show up in revenue in your actual municipal operations, even though additional revenue was brought in for those three or four items. So yeah. You won't, even though if you brought in, we can see development charges of 77,000, that won't show up in the municipal statement of operations. Perfect. Until you decide to use the fund.
When we're ready to spend them, yes. Yeah. Within authorized purchases. Is there any other questions or comments from members of council? Good. You want to continue?
Yeah, I'll just.
Yes, please.
Okay. So we'll just, if we go, I think it'd be easier, there is the consolidated statement of operations, but I think it'd be easier if we looked at page 20, which is the general operations for everyone, which is, So under this, in the revenue, municipal taxation was 7,647,000. This considered taxation of just over 6.7 million. There's supplementary taxes of 171, write-offs of 36,000, and then collection of 625,000. Down below that, there's the user charges for sewer of 978,000. There is a increase. There's slight variance from budget that just relates to the there's larger supplementary taxes brought in than was actually budgeted, the 171 versus the 80,000. In Ontario, the main amount in the almost 2 million from government transfers was the Municipal Partnership Fund of 1,161,000, Ontario Infrastructure of 418,000, recycling of 212,000. Canada, the main component of the Canada was the gas tax of 139,000 and summer student grant of just over 15,000. And then the last item is other revenue, and this relates to interest on outstanding property tax of 174,000, investment income of 92,000, arena rentals of 261,000, building permits of 165, and tipping fees of 277,000. So total revenue from general operations of just about $12 million for the municipality. For the in expense area, there's the general government. You can see it was 1,482,000. This consists of salaries of just about 900,000, materials of 521,000, and amortization of 60,000. But just like the expense items do include amortization expenses, and then protection of personal properties. There was salaries of 683,000, materials of 323,000, and amortization of 155,000. Transportation, the largest cost center for the municipality, had salaries of just about 1,230,000, material costs of 1,524,000, and also amortization of 1,174,000. Environmental services were just under $2 million, which consisted of salaries of 221,000, interest of 245,000, contracted services of 1,531,000, and amortization of 345,000. Social services consisted of salaries of 49,000 and materials of 17, and recreation culture consisted of salaries of 524,000, materials of 425,000, and amortization of 130,000. And the last item is the planning and development, which had salaries of 182,000 and amortization of 8,000, resulting in the total expenses of just over $11 million, resulting in excess revenue over expenses of just about 916,000. Within that, there were transfers. So the two transfers to the public library of just about 81,000, and the historical society of 4,750. Then there was also transfers to reserves of just about 705,000. Transfers from the asset retirement obligation, that's the landfill closure costs of 71,000, then equity and intangible capital assets. So that $197,000 transfer, that consists of its amortization, current year purchases, and then also funding of unfunded. So it's kind of those three amounts netted out to the $197,000. So the net transfers totaled the $915,605, resulting in a change in the general surplus of nil for the year. You have questions? So.
Is there any questions at this point? Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. In the expenses portion for 2023, protection of persons and property, what portion was the OPP billing on that?
It was just over $1 million, $1,002,046.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? Okay, is there more?
Yeah, I'll just,
Please?
well, I can stop.
Just want to make sure that I'm not
Okay.
asking you to
I'll
talk
just-
when you're done.
Well, I'll just, we'll jump over the page 28, which is the last one, scheduled reserves. Oh, right there. So this, oh, sorry. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good, sorry. So this just provides a breakdown of the reserves that I mentioned on the statement of financial position. We saw the municipality has reserves of $3,234,605. So it just shows the transactions during the year. So there's the transfers to operations and also tangible capital assets of $667,000, and then also contributions of the year of $1,805,000, resulting in the ending balance. And then the reserves are broken down into these earmarked for the following areas for future use.
Any questions? Good, seeing none. Is there more?
No,
In all seriousness, I just want to make sure that I'm not interrupting you, yeah.
No, it's, I can, if anyone like, we can look at the cash flow statement, but it's not imperative. It's, if anyone like, it just provides a bit of a breakdown on the, like that change in the cash balance we saw in the statement of financial position, but.
Does anybody need to review the cash flow statement? Okay, I'm seeing none. Good. What I'll do is, before I open the floor back up, we'll hand it back to the treasurer then to see if there's any additional comments, and then we'll open the floor for any final questions.
No, thank you, Roy, for coming in and reviewing the financial statements, and for McKillican Associates for going through and doing the audit for the township. It's good to see now that that's progressing on. We'll carry on with the 2024 year end when that's coming up very shortly. What I'll do now is, if we want to go through and do the development charges and building permits, we'll quickly review those before, I know we want to break shortly before the 6 p.m. Public meeting, if that's fine with council.
In concurrence, so yes,
Okay.
please proceed.
Perfect. So if we go and look at the development charges piece first, which was the attachment to the report, you can see in the year we pulled in, as Rory mentioned, $76,978 worth of development charges in the year. That consisted of 21 residential properties, 1 commercial property, 2 that have water service, and 1 that has wastewater service. Those amounts that come through now total a total balance of $251,410.23 in the township-wide development charge piece. Per our development charges bylaw, there's specific projects that can actually be allocated these funds whenever the study was completed and the bylaw was adopted. It gave a specific list. I will be bringing that list back to council to kind of do an update as to where we sit with certain budgets and where money sits. There was nothing directly for the 2025 budget that we seen that was development charges applicable. One project that we're currently going through and doing right at this point in time is the Mindview salt shed. It was actually listed on the development charges, and we'll be looking, bringing forward to council to use a portion of the development charges to actually fund that building, which was capital through. So it kind of removes a piece off the taxation side. The other 2 are the water and the wastewater side development charges, and again, those are earmarked for growth. And the same thing applies to the township-wide. Anything that is growth related, that's the only things we can truly apply these funds to that were identified in the study and are growth related. The next piece I'll flip to is the building permits for the year. So you can see under the building permit revenues, it was 2023 had $165,012 in revenue, and then in the total the total costs was $281,820. The direct costs are salaries and materials and operating, direct pieces that come to the actual provision of that service, which was $244,472. And indirect costs are things like subscriptions and services like that came in at 33. You can view the year-over-year comparison of the building permits issued. So 2023 had total construction value of $21,446,462 versus 2022, which had $32 million. And then at the bottom part is the actual permit breakdown. So there was 198 permits issued. 95 of those were residential. It does not mean home, but it means under the residential side, so it can be a garage or deck or things like that. Then you have non-residential, demolition, and then septic system, which are counted separately. And the last piece, Carmen, if you can scroll down, this is a comparison of us compared to most other municipalities that I was able to get data for. So you can see in 2023, there was 211 permits that actually came in through the office and were gone through and reviewed. Not all of them are issued, hence why the difference of 211 versus the 198 issued is the actual people that actually came and paid for their permit. But 211 permits were reviewed, and you can see our next two highest levels ones is McNabb Braeside and the town of Petawawa. Two very growing communities, and it just shows the growth in our own community. And with that, I'll ask if there's any questions.
Council, is there any questions for the treasurer? I know the building official is also present, so if there's any questions to do with the DC presentation or the building permit presentation, I'll entertain those now. I see none. Good. Is there anything else that you wanted to present, treasurer?
Nope, that's it at this time. Our auditor, Rory, did speak to the reserve balances. At the next council meeting, I will be bringing that forward to council to review that, hopefully the development charge at the same time, just to kind of look more in depth at those reserves themselves and with a review of the actual policy at the same time.
Excellent, thank you. Oh, Councillor Olmsted thought of something.
Yeah, sorry, and just to be clear, so those reserve balances that we're looking at was at year-end 2023, right? Not...
That's correct. Okay. Yeah, they're year-end 2023, so that does not include anything we were transferring to or from reserve for 2024, and that's what my report will show is the current status of them as of November 6th, whenever we run that report.
Any other questions? No, just before we vote, I just wanted to thank our auditor. We know there's a whole bunch of work that goes into producing what appears to be a 20 or 30 page report. We thank you for that and appreciate you being able to sum it up so easily for us tonight. And the CBO and the building permits numbers, I really appreciate the comparison by year, by type, and of course across the municipalities so that we can put in consideration how we compare with the others to in Renfrew County. So thank you, and thanks, Treasurer, for wrapping this all up. If there's no other questions, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. So thank you. And I will acknowledge that it is 6 p.m., which is, at this point in time, we are to revert. We're going to pause our agenda items and come back to the public meeting on the budget. What I will do is I'm just going to ask anybody who might be watching and waiting for us to start, we're just going to take a short bio break to ensure that we have everybody's complete attention through the presentation, and then we'll recommence. So I'll just ask council 4 minutes, please. Hit the washrooms and then come back and we'll start right away. Thank you. And welcome back to the Township of Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for Wednesday, October 16th. And just a reminder to those that might be listening, we just, before we took a short recess, we were just concluding item 9.2 on the agenda. But as noted on the agenda, item 6.1, which is the public meeting presentation, the note in our agenda says that it will have a 6 p.m. start. Unfortunately, we had some guest speakers. We were just a few minutes running behind here. But we are going to now commence the item 6.1, which is the draft budget public meeting. And I will turn it over to the CAO to kick us off.
Thanks so much. So we are waiting for our treasurer to return from his break, but so I'll commence the session. So what we're going to present today is the 2025 proposed budget. It's the public meeting. The public meeting is a requirement under the Municipal Act, and we also have it in our communications policies that we host a public meeting for our annual budget. Council will have given direction to staff pursuant to this schedule here on September 18th, so budget direction with respect to increases to levy for operating and capital. And then we met on October 2nd for our sort of the budget workshop, if we want to call it that. It's sort of the all-day budget review, and then here we are, October 16th for the budget public meeting. So, moving forward, we're going to seek feedback from members of council as well as the public over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then we're going to deliberate again with council on November 20th. So. Next meeting on budget will be November 20th, and then we're looking to finalize the budget in December. Next slide, please, Curtis. So the mission of the township in the strategic plan is to deliver municipal services to a welcoming community, and our vision is to maintain a rural quality of life by balancing sustainability and growth. So I just we want to highlight that to council as a note of remembrance as we go through this presentation. And maybe I'll finalize this one here, maybe, Curtis, and then you could take over. So just for the public that are present today in the audience, so the budget is separated into 3 sections. One is operating, second is capital, and the third is water, wastewater. There'll be opportunities for public input after each section of the budget. So we'll review the operating, we'll pause for input from the public, and then we'll continue into the capital. So we will receive, we're welcome to receiving both written and in-person input, and we'll be bringing that forward back to council November 20th in a summarizing slide in our next presentation. And then we just asked for the public present that they speak specifically about the reference section of the budget that's being presented, and hold any additional input, whether it's capital or water, wastewater, at that section of the presentation. So again, we're looking for feedback here. We could try to respond to questions, but again, the purpose here is for the public to provide feedback into the budget process and to the members of council. So I'll pass it over to you, if you don't mind, Treasurer McGonigal, to move forward with the next slide. Thanks.
Thank you, CAO. So the first one we look at is how much is a 1% levy increase. So last year our levy for 2024 was $7.195 million. Thus a 1% increase is $71,950. And the next part we look at is actual property tax and the municipal tax equation. So it is our tax levy, which equals our assessment times our tax rates. Our tax rates are generated by looking at the actual weighted assessment that we have and figuring and the amount of money that we need to generate from our taxation in order to actually have the funds necessary for the municipality to operate. These are the money we levy is the things above grants we receive. It's above anything that is not funded through other means. And my next slide kind of shows that. So we have operating versus capital. So it's our total expenses less grants, user fees, and transfer from reserves. That's what equals our levy, and the tax, and which is what is taxed upon our residents. What the levy does not cover is capital not covered through grants, so CCBF, OCIF, or reserves. I'll speak to those two shortly. And then operating funds not covered through grants, and those grants that are the OMPF and Canada Summer Jobs. OMPF is the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, We have not yet received confirmation for the 2025 amount at this point, but the 2024 amount was just shy of $1.2 million. That is money that is actually able to cover operating expenses and not just capital expenses. CCBF and OCIF, CCBF, which is the Canada Community Building Fund, and OCIF, which is the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, are earmarked specifically for capital-related projects or in specific areas. OCIF is more regimented into core infrastructure, and CCBF is formerly known as the provincial gas tax, is what we're able to use for more broader aspects, but it still has to do with general assets of the municipality. So this is the breakdown of how every dollar is collected. So the county gets 31% of that dollar. So if you count it as, you can either count it as percentage or count it as cents. So if this was one solid dollar, the county gets 31 cents of that dollar, education gets 14 cents, the municipality itself, for all the operations we provide, gets 47 cents, and policing accounts for 8 cents. And this is based on the 2024 calculation. I had this slide in my presentation to council earlier, and this just shows where the municipality sits compared to the other municipalities within the county, where they sit in regards to assessment and taxation based on a $100,000 assessment. This includes the municipal and county portion because the municipal and county, or the education and county portion is the same for every municipality throughout the county. So this it just shows the piece. And then the orange line, that illustrates the increases that we're seeing in 2024. And you can see Whitewater region is pretty well right in the middle and has about the third lowest actual increase for the year. So the next part we look into is what's the operating increase, what was proposed. So the operating increase is set at 2%, which was what was brought to council, which is net of growth. The main pieces we looked at is affordability, maintaining current levels of service, the inflation pressures, 3% June over June, and insurance and the annual. I just want to put a note that we have received our OPP billing for 2025, and there has been, as with many municipalities within, not many, all municipalities within the province, there's been a significant increase in those costs. I will be bringing that forward to council on the November 20th meeting to discuss the next steps with that side. So that at this point in time is not included in the 2% operating increase. So capital increase is the 4.2%. This amount comes from our asset management plan, which was dictated whenever it was passed back in 2022 by council. And this is to fund and close the shortfall that we are currently receiving for the actual current replacement value that is assessed on our current assets and versus what we are actually currently providing through funding. So our funding sources, like I mentioned before, was Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, OCIF, Canada Community Building Fund, CCBF, and then finally our tax reserves and reserve funds. So tax is where this 4.2% comes into play. Our Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund is a calculated amount based on the core infrastructure assets that we report to the government that is limited at 15% increase each year. We're receiving that 15% increase again for 2025. And then Canada Community Building Fund, which is a fund that is negotiated and provided to by the federal and provincial governments and negotiated by AMO in order to receive that. When we look at capital in order to what actually made the list of items that staff are recommending to be considered for this year, for the 2025 year, is the must-have, can't fail, timing is right, annual replacement, or strategically important. So the first slide we're going to look really at is the transfer to reserves. So you'll notice that the first one, the administration capital reinvestment, in 2024 it was 442, but in 2025 it's proposed to be 0. The reason for this is to move the capital funding out of the operating reserve, out of the operating budget. So operating is for operating and capital is for capital, and we separate those two sides for funding. The other reason is the that amount was used to fund the debenture debt that was incurred in 2024 without creating a huge impact to the budget. And in order to add that back into the budget for 2025, to bring it to the same status that it was before, there would be roughly a 4% increase just to get to that area, 5% actually. So then the other reserve amounts we're looking at is administration, which is our election. So every year council puts away a small amount to go forward for the next election. So there's no change in that. Emergency measures, flood management. So $15,000 in 2024. We're looking at a slight decrease for 2025, down $5,000. Funded through taxation. The reason for that decrease is we're nearing $100,000, which will cover a good portion of our amount before the actual insurance portion that we could go in for MDRA. So there's no real need to continue to build that reserve much past that point now that we've reached that amount. Another one is building administration, which is a truck. So every year we put a small amount of money away from the user fees in order to purchase the building inspector his new vehicle whenever the life expectancy runs out on the other one. This amount comes from looking at the actual value of a vehicle and the life expectancy of that vehicle and dividing it over those number of years. Waste. This is a transfer to reserves that is calculated based on the curbside collection cost above the actual contract and other charges. So it goes from $34,425, which was the budgeted 2024 amount, down to $20,000 for 2025. Landfill post-closure is still remaining the same at $20,000, and then the Otter River Power Corp still stays the same at $16,000. This one is a in and out in the bookkeeping side. We don't record the revenue or the expenses associated with this until this point in time when we actually use the money. We directly, our money that is received through this side, which includes our dividends and interest charges from our promissory note to Otter River Power Corp, goes to a reserve until we choose to use it. The next area we'll look at is salaries and wages. So this is just a summary of the township-wide salaries and wages. So you'll notice between 2024, the total salaries was $4.18 million. For 2025, it's looking at $4,281,545. So this amount includes a 3% COLA increase. So COLA stands for cost of living allowance. This 3% is calculated using the June over June CPI calculation for Ontario, if anybody wants to view that. So you'll see that the FTE has gone down by 0.125, and that's because we've removed asset management coordinator out of the FTE, which originally was put in, was originally proposed to be a shared position between 4 municipalities, us as one party. That didn't work couldn't find a suitable candidate for that, so we've removed that out of the salary grid for this year, 2025, and are looking to still have to update our asset management plan, so we're having money included in our capital budget for that. Full-time complement did not change. Casual is down slightly due to the fact that we're going to be operating one less ice surface, and students remains the same. So this is just a breakdown of the salaries and wages of the general operating budget. Everything from council all the way down to drainage. The biggest notes on this page is the planning and development and then ECDEV, or economic development. The reason for the much larger changes compared to the other departments is because the planner EDO originally did not have any of the salary allocated to economic development, even though that's part of their position. It was all in the planning department. So this year, to provide more of a clarity in what each department puts forward and show that the economic development, what is actually spent on that portion, we broke out 25% of the salary, which in speaking with the planner seems to be the amount that makes the most sense. So that's why you'll see a substantial increase in economic development, but the planning and development has gone down a similar amount. And then these are just salaries and wages, water, wastewater. You'll see one went down actually a little bit, and then the other one very small up, not even quite a percent. And this is because of the removal of that asset management coordinator as mentioned before. So next we look at debentures and debt. So this is money that we have, money we received for projects that we have completed through the Ontario Infrastructure Loans Corporation. So the list goes down, and you can see up through the year of maturity. So in 2025 will be the last year we'll be making a payment for the excavator. After that, it'll be removed from the books. The year after that, 2026 will be the last year of payments for their compactor drum roller. So different than the compactor we just purchased for the landfill, it's our drum roller, a smaller machine, and our grader. Then after that, tandem plow, Anderson Watchhorn, and you can go down through the list. With the longest current debenture on the books is our Cobden Wastewater Treatment Plant. This slide changed from the original presentation presented to council just to show the total principal payment and the total amount of interest paid in the year. So you'll see 1.107 of principal will be paid and $503,000 worth of interest. So our year-end balance at the end of 2025 will be $13 million worth of outstanding debt. So our debenture changes for the year was the actual landfill compactor and the debenture that went with it at $861,431. There's 2 payments that have been budgeted for that in 2025, and it's a 10-year term. And then our debentures that got paid off in 2024 that are no longer on the books for 2025 will be our solar panels and the backhoe and Freightliner tandem truck. Next, we move into the general operating. So whenever I go through this, this is the individual departments and their individual budgets. I'll just put a note now that the plan is whenever we get to capital, I'll have each individual manager of each department talk about their specific capital projects, and I'll just go through the general operating. So this category is broken down into the same categories as the financial information return, which is what we as municipalities have to file with the government in order to receive funding through grants, through our through all grants and, and pieces are tied to that. So you have general government, protective services, transportation services, environmental services, recreation and culture, and then planning and development. So under the general government heading, council, office of CAO, finance, human resources, legislative services, and information technology are the categories that fall underneath that heading. So you can see council seeing a slight increase of $5,700 over 2025. Muskrat Watershed Council, so every year the council provides a grant to that to the Watershed Council, $5,500, and there's no proposed changes to that. Under the administration headline, so a slight decrease in overall budget. And this is due to the fact that inside this budget item is where the transfer to reserve of the capital reinvestment was located. So that's what this decrease is accounting for. So you'll see the 2024 FTE was 7.27, and the 2025 FTE is 7.14. Again, it's the removal of the asset management coordinator. So big pieces of savings was the capital reinvestment contribution, moving capital completely out of the operating budget. Our iCompass subscription change, which is the program that we all use to view our council agendas, just making a small change to that, thanks to the clerk, has saved the township $7,000. And then tax write-offs, which is a decrease of $15,000, and the background on that is every year we have to allocate a certain amount of money as a write-off to kind of stabilize the assessment roll book that we receive. Every year, MPAC would adjust all properties back to the residential class that's situated as farms that were not actually being operated by farmers. They were people who did not farm it themselves but had a tenant farmer, so they would automatically revert back to a property that was not was not classed as farm, so not getting the discount of 75% of the actual taxation rate. So what would happen is we would have this amount to offset the revenue that would be received, so that it would be corrected. Going forward, MPAC has corrected that issue, that they are going to leave them as the farm class, so less administrative headache for us and less calculations for us. So that's why that amount is decreasing. So then admin building, which is this building itself, our operating expenses are increasing by $11,550. The biggest driver to that is increasing building repairs and maintenance, and that's just to increase the uptake or the appearance and condition of this building itself. Heating repairs, painting, those type of things. Protections to persons and property. So there's 6 main categories that fall under this heading. So there's fire and policing. So first we'll talk fire. The total increase is $59,178. The biggest driver to this one is the increase of bunker gear, or inclusion of bunker gear into the operating budget. This has traditionally been on the capital listing, but it is something that is a revolving every year. It must be spent in order to replace the equipment as it phases out or as it ages out and needs to be replaced. So in speaking with the fire chief, it was best felt to move that onto the operating if possible, and so that's why it's been included here. The other part is the increase of $11,000 for wages, which is just through a COLA increase, and then water usage, which was, as brought up before, in the Wastewater Task Force final report, and this is the amount that was come to for the usage of water outside of the areas that actually have access to fire hydrants filling the tankers. Policing, so 2024 expenses was 1.10. 2025 expenses is 1.06. So the total increase at this point in time of writing this presentation was $50,324. The estimated OPP at that time increase based on 3%, and that was a estimate that I'd come up with of $30,000. Again, as I noted before, it is substantially over that. So that's what will come back on November 20th for deliberation through council. And then the other side is the estimated police services board, which we're still working through, and a different report will be brought to council to both approve the budget itself and to approve the actual way that the budget is being broken out between the 7 municipalities that are contributing. And I know Councillor Tabbert has gone to a bunch of meetings regarding that. The next one we'll look at is the building department. So 2024's total expenses was $284,550. 2025's is $278, $375, a decrease of $61.75. And the main driver behind this decrease is the actual decrease in subscriptions. So the municipality and the building department has decided to move away from the cloud permitting software, which was an electronic software that had been implemented whenever the modernization grant came through in 2021-22, I believe. It was to make the process of applying for building permits easier and to make it all electronic. The issue was found as it was not as easy as it was sold to be, and the ongoing subscription was very similar to what the actual setup cost was at $15,000, which is a lot for a subscription. So the building department has decided to move away from that piece, and the CBO is here, so he can talk about that piece after if there's any questions. So the building department, every year we show where the building department stands as what's expected for revenue versus the budgeted expenses, and either the shortfall or the surplus. The only reason we show this is to show the difference between one, but two, the building department, if it was to ever make a surplus situation, that would have to be directed to reserve, so that would have to be notified to council ahead of time, and just as an overall review. So this year, there's been nothing brought forward by the CBO to do an increase in building fees, so hence why the revenue stays as it is, and we're going back to the growth number. You've seen my earlier report talking about the number of permits that come through, but there has been a constant decrease in homes and value of permits, as it was shown that there was a $10 million in construction value decrease So there's maybe a lot of permits, but the actual value and then the cost of those permits is decreasing. We're coming back to more pre-COVID amounts. Next area is emergency measures, animal control and bylaw. So emergency measures is what we do show for our protection for flooding. Any type of emergency that has to do tends to be flooding. There's only slight increase of that of $180. Bylaw enforcement, again, only slight increase, $165. Drivers behind that is the salary breakdown. And then animal control, same thing, $835. Again, salary increases. I should note that our bylaw contract for bylaw enforcement is up for renewal, so that'll be coming forward whenever the, hopefully should be completed by the time the November 20th presentation comes on. Next, we move into transportation. So this one looks at our transportation, which is our roads, streetlights, and then the airport. So under the roads headline, you have operating expenses for 2025 of $2.8 million. It's an increase of $56,000. There is a slight decrease in FTE, asset management coordinator being removed to 0.10. Some of the bigger increases is wages. However, there was some savings seen by the fuel category, just on the actual usage and cost coming more back down from the COVID highs, 21,000. Building repairs and maintenance, you'll kind of see across the board, and this was something that through meetings with council, they identified the appearance and the state of the actual buildings is a priority to council, so we've tried to allocate some funds to ensure that is upkept. So that's an increase of 10,000. Line painting is an increase of 10,000. That's to bring up our level of service to include all roads. Dust control, 5,000. That's to maintain level of service. Gravel is to get back to the original point of, I believe it was 10 kilometers of road. Guardrails is a new category, just we're breaking that out. There is some guardrails, but it has been kind of not tracked and not budgeted separately, and there is a number of them that need to be repaired within the township, so it's been looked to be broke out. And then engineering, which is not so much new, but it has not been included in a few years, and that's for looking at projects and pre-planning of projects for grant funding and things in the future. So we're only doing a few user fee changes this year. Under the Public Works heading, it's a private road sign. 2024's piece was cost recovery. So 2025, it's proposed to remove this item completely from the user fee bylaw. Because normally it is, if the sign is already there, it is our requirement to replace it. And if they purchase a new one or are requiring a new one, it is normally included in the plan of subdivision costs. So we don't need to really specify the separate piece. A utility road crossing permit goes from $250 to no charge. And this more has to do with hydro line crossing, fiber line crossing, telephone line crossing of our roads, but is not necessary in order to provide the services for the township residents. The next piece is our gravel road program. So the Manager of Public Works has identified 4 roads. So it's Pleasant Valley Road, La Poste to Powers Road, and then Pleasant Valley Road, Powers to Fletcher, Kerr Line, and then Acres Road, Mindview Road to Olmsted Jeffrey Lake. So the Kerr Line is just the gravel portion. So it's a total of 10.1 kilometers of road. And that's what we can get to 10.1 due to the fact we increased the budget by $10,000 for that gravel portion. So streetlights, there's very little change of $800. And then airport is actually a decrease of $5,000 over 2024. The airport is a requisition that comes from the Pembroke Airport Commission. They are mandated that they can only do a certain increase per year, and this is still within their amount to increase over actual, hence the decrease. Next is environmental services. So under that heading is water and wastewater. Those categories will be spoke shortly in the water wastewater portion of the budget. So in this portion, we'll be speaking just about the recycling, waste, and landfill. So this one's a little more complicated because this is a transition year for the recycling contract. So 2024 to 2025 for recycling, we'll see a decrease of $216,875. Then under waste, operating expenses go from $259,600 to $355,475, an increase of $95,875. That's the change of contract in between the ceasing of the recycling collection for residential properties by the township, and that process being taken over by the outside government. Then below is the landfill, so 2024 operating expenses to 2025 is an increase of $22,875, and that's just for, again, salaries, but also for some repairs and maintenance and ECA requirements for the landfill and engineering. So under the user fees, we just want to note that under the waste collection, there is no proposed change between 2024 to 2025. It will remain at the 168 per year and still remain at the 2 bags per week and unlimited recycling while we provide the recycling. So user fee changes under the landfill side, the minimum charge, which is 200 kilograms and less, is $21. It's proposed is to $21.50, and then tipping fee per ton is to go from $105 to $107.50. Sorted construction demolition $105 to $107.50. Unsorted loads, this one is to go from $210 to $268.75, and this is, instead of being currently, it is 2 times the tipping fee to become 2.5 times the tipping fee, which is similar to other municipalities. Trees, large branches, stumps is per the ton, and it would be the regular tipping fee of 105 to 107. Baled agricultural plastic, there would just become a charge for this instead of the current where it is no charge, due to the fact that there is no recycling program available to us at this point in time to use that send that baled agricultural plastic away. Contaminated soil, I know the environmental superintendent will be bringing a separate report forward for this, to not accept the contaminated soil. And then under boats, it used to be prior to 2024, it was by the foot. It changed the per ton tipping rate, and so this is just a general increase in the per ton tipping rate. Recreation and cultural services. So this is our parks, our tourist booth, economic development, the arenas, social services, libraries, and museum. So the recreation, our park piece goes from 417 operating expenses to 401, a decrease of 15,950. We do have an increase in FTE, but the biggest driver behind this decrease is that for this year, we've broken the insurance cost out of parks and moved the portion that applies to our arenas, our recreation facilities, to those facilities to more provide clarity as to the cost of those facilities. And I haven't added a note in here that recreation grants, they remain unchanged at $10,000 at this point in time. But again, that is up to debate through council. Our recreation facility operations. So in 2024, there was operating expenses of $526,650. Transfer to reserves in addition to that of $37,500. And then for 2025, it's $518,705. So if we're looking just at operating expenses, it's a decrease of $8,575. So we're going from an FTE of 3.58 to 3.38. So Cobden is operational for ICE, Westmeath, and Beachburg. It's not operational through the township. It is operational through the user agreements, just not directly by the township. And then the insurance has been apportioned to the facilities for 2025 from the parks budget. So the proposed piece under user fee charges for recreation reads as follows. Organized fishing tournament per event is to go from $265.48 to $272.12. All these will see a 2.5% increase, except for organized fishing tournament. That one is looking to be removed. And I know there was discussion whenever this was presented to council, and we'll come back to that portion whenever we come back on the 20th as to the reason behind that removal and the reason for the actual fee in the first place. Under this side, the only ones that are new is the Cobden kitchen rental only of $150, and the rental use damage / cleaning fee of to become cost recovery, and that's just so that whenever if anything is damaged or if we have to clean up we clean up, we can do a cost recovery for that time that is incurred. The COVID-19 cleaning fee, wishful thinking, we'll remove it at the $17.70. It kind of falls underneath the upper one of cleaning fee is just as a cost recovery. And then to add to this user fee chart that was not originally included is the Cobden Arena advertising, the 4x8 wall advertisements of $200. And then the Cobden Arena advertising, which is the ice surface boards, the 3-foot by 8-foot section of $400. I should mention too, these are annual charges, so they're only seen once a year. So whenever they're put in at the start of ice season, they're there for the entire ice season. It's not one for 1 year and then pay for the next year. It's a full annual ice season operation. Tourist booth and economic development. So tourist booth sees a slight decrease of operating expenses, just to the fact that we reviewed the water, sewer, and the telephone piece of that area. Telephone was a big cost to that side, and in the change of the phone system we have completed, there has been some savings. Under economic development, this is where you'll see one of the bigger increases, and that's due to the fact of the planning EDO salary being allocated at 25% to that. So that's why it goes from 0.25, which used to be just the community development coordinator, and now it's the planner EDO 0.25% portion of that. And I'll note here that our tourism and events grant, which was established in 2021, remains unchanged at $3,000. So this one is for events and tourism places for groups to apply, and we have a policy piece on that. And it's to encourage that tourism piece to come to the municipality or hold events here. So social services, which is our seniors program, I'm happy to say that this program for the most part runs completely on grants. So really there is no inclusion in the 2025 budget other than a few operating expenses just transferred from other department pieces. So it goes from $34,620 to $7,100. That decreases at $2,750. So as all of you are aware, in 2024 there was the septic system replacement. So that was included in the operating budget for that department or for that area, section of the budget. And so with the removal of that, because it does not need to be completed again, that's where the $27,520 comes from. Libraries and museums. So in 2024, their total operating expenses was $4,680. The operating grant was $80,700. For 2025, the operating expenses, due to the fact that they are no longer operating in the Forsters Falls building, is $2,575, and the operating grant will be $80,525. That calculation is to bring it always to the same dollar value, which was always set at $85,000. But with the removal of the building, it no longer needs to be at that category. Then you have the museums. So you have the operating expenses, $6,950, and the grant of $4,150, $11,100, and then the 2025 operating grant, $6,950, and operating $4,150. I realize I did not update that slide. Planning and development. So what falls under this planning department is planning and drainage. When we speak drainage, it's our municipal drains within the township. Our storm sewers and pieces like that are under our transportation side through roads. So 2024 operating expenses was $200,850. The operating expenses are down to $169,100, a decrease of $31,750, and that's mainly due to the wages reallocation. We also reallocated their streetscaping at the tune of $5,000 to economic development. And I'll just note that our community improvement grant, which is currently completely exhausted for 2024, remains unchanged at $15,000. This is one where businesses can apply for funding to do certain changes to improve the community and improve their streetscape. through the municipality. So under drainage, or municipal drains, only a slight increase, again, has to do with increase for COLA. Municipal drains normally is, you'll see things like our drainage superintendent's salary in there through contract, and a portion of our environmental superintendent's salary. So now we look at the actual revenue and what the operating portion of the levy comes to. So our operating expenses is $10 million, $52,850. Operating revenue, $3,254,750. So you'll notice there's been a substantial decrease in our operating revenue, which is our grants, user fees, and others. And that has been kind of having to be made up by also by the fact that we've decreased our operating expenses as well to make up for that piece. So our balance to be funded by the levy is $6,798,100. As you can see for the prior, the total increase is 2.6%, but our expected growth is 0.6%, which works out to be a 2% overall increase that the residents would actually see on their tax bill for operating. I've added this slide just to show the weighted assessment growth. You can see whenever COVID and other pieces came through, they created this increase of growth, and we can really see it since there has not been a new assessment cycle since 2016. It ended in 2020, so after 2020, any increases to our actual assessment was purely growth. So it paints a nice picture. That's the one nice part about whenever we don't have assessment cycles, it's a lot easier to show our growth. So this goes, you can see there was quite a step from 21 to 22. Another sort of pretty good step to 23. Very substantial in 2024, which is what we have just seen. Hence why we passed a budget of 6.2% levy increase, but only really increased the taxes to the resident. Only 3.25 was what the actual impact of that was to the actual taxpayer for municipal. And then where 2025 is proposed. And this is the high and the ending of the permits that were issued and the growth that came with the influx of people from the COVID era. And now we're kind of coming back to that pre-COVID era where it was 2021's rate. 0.6% is pretty well my estimate. We might reach 1%, but I'm sticking with 0.6 at this point in time. And with that, I'll ask if there's any public input.
Good. Thank you, Treasurer. Sorry, you had one more point. Go ahead.
Yeah. Just as a comment that was received to me from the public, there was a resident concerning the request for bulk item pickup to be included. So just as a note to council, and I'll provide the actual request to council after the meeting.
Perfect. So there was only one request from the operating budget?
Just the one, yep.
Yeah. Good. And I'll just remind council the way that, and the CAO brought it up at the start, the idea is that tonight we accept any input from the public. We do not deliberate tonight. Gives us some time to go back out and talk to other members of the community or get approached by other members of the community, and we'll have a full chance to do the full deliberation at a subsequent meeting. Correct? Good. Excellent. With that being said, I note that we have some members of the public in our presence. And if you would like to provide some input into the operating budget, please come up to the mic and state your name, and the floor is yours.
Sorry to interrupt, Mayor. I just have to hop off here for a second. I'll do that shortly.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Burns from Haley Station. I just have a couple of questions. Can you tell me what streetscaping is?
CAO.
Yeah, so typically the streetscaping operating budget relates to the support of local, in some situations, horticultural societies that put out flowers and beautification measures on our main streets. It would also include, the Canada flags that line some of our main streets that are renewed. So that would be the streetscaping.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks. Another one I wanted to ask about was your hall rental.
I'll just get to, can we pull up the hall rental slide? The references? Oh, good. Please go ahead.
Just wanted to clarify, what is prime? Like, is that just evenings, or is that Friday and the weekends, or how does that apply? Like, is a Tuesday night considered prime?
Manager of Community Services, please.
Yes, so prime hours would be after 5 o'clock, evenings during the week and weekends.
Okay. And when you charge that 66, I guess that's 63 per hour, does that include setup of chairs and tables, or is that strictly just the hall rental?
Sorry, our staff will assist, but it's generally the hall rental.
Just the bare hall rental?
Yeah. Like the tables and chairs are there in the facility.
Okay, I know I've rented it in the past, and we've always had to set up our own chairs, set up the chairs and the table there, so other places don't do that, they'll have it set up for you. So I just wondered how you do it here, if that changed at all. And there's one more I wanted to ask about. Oh, this goes to your transportation. I'm just curious, you're talking about the different roads that you want to plan for, but I notice here in town on Crawford Street, you've got a funeral home, 2 churches, busy road. It's one of the worst roads around, and it hasn't been touched on and it also ends at the entrance of the fairgrounds. So I'm wondering why that road is in the shape that it is, and it's never being looked at for a town, for, the village road. I've had a lot of people say that to me too, so question it.
If I could, through you, the mayor, staff and I'm certain council are well aware of the condition of Crawford Street. I do think that we could maybe speak to that item when we get to the capital budget, where we've presented to council some priority roads. I do believe, and I would lean on our manager of public works, that I think Crawford has been designed, has engineering design, and we do have an estimated project cost, which could be slightly dated, but it's expensive. It's quite expensive.
Oh, I realize that, yeah.
And what has to be replaced there could include water, wastewater pipes. When we get to the capital slides, we will all note that the list of projects that is there is approximately 19 or 20 million dollars of projects listed, and we only have about $2 million bucks to spend. So lots of projects, lots of money we need, and there's a shortfall on funds. But if we could just maybe can we put that question to the side? When we get to the capital, let's bring it up again.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
That's perfect. And just to note for the public that may have caught Mrs. Burns' comments, in the transportation section of the operating budget, we do talk about roads, but it's specific to gravel roads. And gravel roads are considered an operating cost versus a capital cost. The margin is smaller to maintain a gravel road on an annual basis. We're talking about streets like Crawford, we're in the millions. Fair? Good. Is there any other public comments? There's only, sorry, I just want to make sure. Good. And I noticed we had a member leave. I don't know if he'll return, but that's fine. We can accept comments or input at any point in time. CAO?
Maybe just if we could, through you, the mayor, ask council if there's more questions they might have or any comments now that they've seen it a second time, the full capture of it. Perhaps there are. And we can note them and just try to address them at a later date, perhaps.
Good. Just general concurrence to kind of amend the format. Good. Questions from Councillor Tabbert?
Just one, under the recycling waste and landfill, and I know that you told us this and I can't remember it. Why is there an increase in the operating expenses of $95,000? That was the only one I caught. And I know.
Good. Manager of Public Works, or I'm looking, someone?
Yes, yeah, I can take it over. Yes, so with the increase, the with the current contract, moving in 2025, our current garbage collection contractor provided there was a error in the separation between the waste collection and then the recycling side of it. We are in negotiations with them to determine if that actually was an error or if going forward it is ongoing with it, that we are moving away from paying for recycling.
And Deputy Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mayor. Something that came to my attention, and it was just in the last week or so, someone had asked about the possibility of shredding, because we do have quite a few businesses, we do have quite a few individuals who do require a lot of paper, and I know we do have a shredding company that comes around, I believe it's monthly, and I was just wondering if that would be an option we might entertain to moving forward, even if you have to pay for the service, whatever it is.
If I could provide some response, perhaps the, I don't think the shredding is maybe a level of service that would fit within the spheres of our jurisdiction. However, we could get this individual or the businesses in contact with the company we use, and perhaps there's economies of scale if the truck's coming through the region. So that might be the first avenue we explore, is let's connect them with the company we utilize and see if they could find some savings because they're already in the area, perhaps, as a first step. I hope that responds, and maybe we could re-examine later on, but provide me with the contact and we'll get them, or with our clerk Miller, who manages that contract, and she can get them in contact with the company. Thanks.
Good. I note I have another question from the public, but I'll just wrap up with the council first, and then I'll go back to the public. Any other members of council, any comments or questions? Good. I'll just make one note. I think when I added up the grants that are available to the public, there's $10,000 for parks and recs, $3,000 for events, and $10,000 for community improvement, according to the community improvement plan. Total of $28,000 accessible to our community organizations and event organizers.
Yeah, so it's $15,000 for community improvement.
Yes.
Not
Okay.
10.
15, 10, and 3.
Yes.
Perfect. Good. If there's no other questions from council on this section, I'm going to go back. We have another member of the public who wants another question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, with MPAC, when it comes to classifying or for your assessments, who does it first? Is it the council? Is it the township that tells MPAC, or is it MPAC that tells the township what your classification is for your property?
Yeah, so I can take that. So it's MPAC who tells us. The difference is, whenever I was talking about the farm properties, is there's outside bodies that actually tell MPAC what they are. AgriCorp is the one that tells what farms are, what the farm classification falls under. So they have to apply to AgriCorp. AgriCorp then tells MPAC. MPAC then creates the assessment, and which is provided to us, which we tax on. I know it's tedious. Then there's the other side where it's managed forest. That's the Ministry of Natural Resources that goes through that. So if you have a managed forest category, again, it goes through the Ministry of Natural Resources. They tell MPAC, and it comes then back to us. We are the last recipient of it, and we don't have any ability to change what the classification is. It all has to be determined either through MPAC or through the upper bodies that are controlling what MPAC can actually calculate it as.
So you mentioned AgriCorp.
Yep.
Tells MPAC.
That's correct.
I had a call this week from a fella. As you know, I'm with the Ontario Landowners. Now, this guy called me to say that his property was agriculture, and then it was changed to residential, and he hadn't changed his property. He still had the barn and everything. And I thought it was the township that did the zoning.
No. So I can give that. We can speak offline on that one.
Okay, sure.
But what happens is, this is to my point of the tenant farmer area, is if nothing of the actual structure of the farm can change, but if you don't no longer apply and pay for your business number through the OFA and through AgriCorp, and you're no longer, remember that you're generating $7,000 worth of income to get that qualification of being a farm, and you're just renting the land to another farmer, that other farmer is technically classified as a tenant farmer. When they're a tenant farmer, they have to apply every year back to AgriCorp to say that they are still operating on that farm or on that roll number in order to keep that classification as farm to continue to go on year after year after year. But they have to do that annually, and there's a cutoff date for that, and I believe it's around February, March of every year. They need to do that before the next roll book it goes through, and that's why the transfer back to residential. I encourage that resident to contact AgriCorp or contact if they have a resident farmer on the property, and that resident farmer can contact AgriCorp and say, hey, I'm on this property with the roll number, and it can get changed. It's a very easy change, and then
Well,
we just
the township
process
did
change.
say it was MPAC, and I told him, well, call MPAC and get something from, in writing that they did it, then you know where to start. But anyway, thanks very much.
No problem.
Excellent. Last call for any questions, or sorry, input on the operating budget. This is all good. Questions are a form of input. Good? Excellent. We are going to continue to plow through this. If I can ask the treasurer to continue.
Yep, no problem. So the next part we move on to is the capital and special project budget. So I'll just go through the funding sources here first. So the first one we come to is the Interior Community Infrastructure Fund. Our 2025 allocation, which has been confirmed, is $742,785, which is a 15% increase over 2024. This portion, we're allocating, $363,965 to general capital and $378,820 to our water wastewater fund, wastewater users. The idea behind this, and it flows into the water wastewater task force recommendation, is to use this funding. It comes from the core infrastructure assets and is calculated by the government. That comes through a calculating factor, and then what determines the funding. This breakout of the actual funding is based on the total number of core infrastructure assets that we are getting that funding from water and wastewater versus the general operating. So we take the total number of water wastewater assets divided by the total assets that are applicable for the funding, and it brings us to the $378,820. So this money you'll see in the water wastewater budget slides when we come to that, where we talk about the actual allocations and how that assists the water wastewater users. So then, as I noted, it's calculated using current replacement values of those assets. So eligible projects is capital construction of new core infrastructure, capital maintenance or renewal or rehabilitation to replace core infrastructure, and asset management software, training, and third party. One piece to note is the core infrastructure. Like I noted before, OSIF is a more restricted fund of what it can be spent on. It either has to be part of that infrastructure piece or the payment of debenture debt for core infrastructure. So next is the Canada Community Building Fund, CCBF, formerly known as the gas tax, as many of you know. It's a federal funding. So there's $236,620. It's confirmed as the 2025 allocation, thanks to the contract negotiations through AMO. So the eligible projects are construction, renewal, or material enhancement for infrastructure. You notice it does not say core infrastructure, just infrastructure, hence why it's more lenient. Remediation and redevelopment of brownfield sites, and initiatives that strengthen your municipality's ability to plan for the future. Recreation facilities and recreation projects fall within this CCBF category. Recreation, tourism, social economics. So funding sources under the tax and reserves. So 2025 taxation for capital. With the contributions from 2024 of $582,852, and with the 4.2% that's proposed for 2025, which totals $302,190, it would give a total amount of $885,042 generated from the levy to fund capital projects. This money is not restricted in any ways of what it can be spent on, and that's where it comes through. So, and then our other reserves, or other revenues, and it comes from reserves like working capital, development charges, water, and wastewater. I will note that I list working capital here, but working capital itself is more used in emergency situations and should not be used as a direct funding source for projects. It's more to ensure that if there's any decreases in revenue or unforeseen projects, that they can be funded through that area and in that type of emergency situation. So the capital and special projects. So there was 89 projects identified. That list actually has grown since, but is $19,250,000 in total value. The breakdown is 2 in the Economic Development Department, 3 Environmental Services, 8 in General Government, 1 in Planning Development, 5 in Protective Services, 36 in Recreational and Cultural Services, 27 under the Transportation Services. That includes roads and other projects. So there's two projects in there that are with water and 1 with wastewater, 1 purely wastewater project and 6 water projects. 53 of these projects are considered replacement, and 36 out of the 89 are considered new.
If I could, just because of the Crawford question, so I went back to the spreadsheet that makes up this $19 million. If you just go back 1 slide, if you don't mind, Treasurer. Crawford Street is listed there as a project in that $19 million, and it's the 3rd highest cost project at about $1.9 million. So it didn't. You'll see shortly that it did not make the cut for 2025, but it is noted as a project. It is on the list that needs to occur. So just as a quick note, thanks. Perfect. Thanks so much. So there's a couple items with respect to the sort of economic development department and a sort of infrastructure with some funding. So the first one here, banners and streetscaping. So council and the public will be aware that we have empty streets with respect to banners. There were some purchased some numbers of years ago. They had become in disrepair and they were removed. The strategy here is to sort of re-beautify our main streets again, and that's the main streets in all of our villages and hamlets. And we've projected a cost of about $50,000, and we've received, I believe it was 2 estimates to come up with that number. So that'll get us started, and we anticipate that we'll have to increase potentially operating or use that streetscaping operating cost to maintain the banners into the future. But we might also need to further surplus that amount in subsequent years. The electric vehicle and charging stations. So we received a grant under the Rural Transit Fund in partnership with Bonashire Valley and North Algona Wilberforce. So this project looks at purchasing 1 electric vehicle in our township, 1 in each township total, and 2 charging stations locally as well, so 6 total, if I recall correctly. Estimated project cost for 2025 is $35,000. So we're still working through the procurement of these items and the program to be put in place to support the use of this vehicle and the charging station. So more information to come, but probably in early 2025. Thanks.
Thank you. Next we'll go to Environmental Services. Superintendent, if you wouldn't mind speaking.
Yeah, so the first item listed, the landfill compactor, this is the first debenture payment, or this is the first time that the debenture cost shows up on the capital list, as it was purchased in 2024, but the first payment comes out in 2025. The second item is a landfill ECA amendment application fee. So this is the actual cost to submit the application for our ECA amendment that incorporates the new depot drop-off area at the landfill, as well as a redesign of the waste mound with a small expansion. This is essentially a committed project already. The work has been done, and the Ministry of Environment will require us to update our ECA. So this is the fee that is levied to do that.
Thank you. Next, we'll go on to general government, and I'll just go through this one. So under computer software, we're just doing a replacement of our current capital items, cost of $30,000. That's to upgrade current computers used by municipal staff, as well as security systems and things like that. Our asset management update, and this is for compliance. So as of July 1st, 2025, we need to provide the government with a updated asset management plan, an update from our 2022 asset management plan that was passed, showing our proposed levels of service and how it's going to be funded. So that this amount is just to get that document up to date. There'll be a lot of council deliberations and information brought forward in the coming months on this topic to bring that piece up to date. Going through the current levels of service and what the proposed level of service will look like for the municipality. BCA is building condition assessments. So that's an update of all of our assessments that were done, I believe, in 2015, some of them, and 2019, the others, I believe, and then an assessment of this town hall as well. The reason for these building condition assessments is, one, so that we can have accurate data, replacement data, to be brought into our asset management plan for that update that we're currently doing. It makes the new asset management plan, whenever it's updated, the most up-to-date information and the most accurate information. And the other piece is so that we actually have a scope and idea on the replacement cost of this building as well as all other buildings since all of these studies were done pre-COVID and pre-costs. And then finally is our website upgrade, and this is to create a brand new website, just to update the actual look of our current website into a new website and bring that forward just for accessibility sides. And I believe Councillor Olmsted had mentioned of being able to be cell phone applicable. It'll allow that. The next section we'll move into is protective services, and I'll ask the fire chief to make comment on the episode.
Thank you. The first item on the list is the fire tanker that was ordered earlier this year. So moving $330,000 over to reserves to fund it with expected delivery in 2026. The second item is the replacement vehicle 9851. It's been out of service since 2023 due to a transmission failure. The final item, extrication equipment. This would be used to replace aging gas equipment with new battery equipment that has lower operating costs, quicker and more efficient in deployment, and a lot less noise on scene. Thank you.
Thank you. The next one we'll move into is Recreation and Cultural Services, Manager of Community Services.
So the first item on the list is the Westmeath boat launch planning and rehabilitation. So we have a study on that, and we'll be moving that project forward. The Cobden Arena ice plant electrical panel was noted in one of the studies that has been completed, and as well by the contractor for ice operations. That needs to be replaced. The structural assessments for all three arenas will be done at the cost of $60,000. And then we also included flooring replacement in the lobby and upstairs in the Cobden Arena, and included accessible picnic tables, and as well tables and chairs for the Cobden Arena. So these are all amounts that were requested, and some of them are lower than the total project costs that we wanted, but we're going to work with what we have for moving forward these projects.
Thank you. Next is transportation services.
Yeah, thank you. We have a few items. One is for equipment. We have a grader mulch head that goes on one of our graders. Changing one of the heads to have a cleaner look for brushing. For roadside brushing. The other a piece of equipment is a sweeping head and tank for our new sidewalk tractor. And repairs to our Mindview sand shed. Then for road infrastructure, grant settlement from Forster Falls Road to McCoy Road, Wallace and Simmons Drive, and working with the Township of Laurentian Valley, is Cemetery Road. It is a boundary road that we would cost share half with the Township and half with LV Township. And the other road that would be considered if LV would not provide that in their budget would be McFarland Road. It would be resurfaced from DST.
Thank you. So this part here is just a slide to show what the 4.2% will represent in the long run if council continues to make this contribution to pull from taxation to refurbish our assets and continue to put forward for that replacement. You can see by the year 2032, we have just a little over $3.5 million, just shy of 3.6, which is, I should note that per asset management plan, they noted a total cost of $12.2 million is what is required by the township for our current replacement value annually. Of that amount, $9.2 million of that is actual taxation based. The remainder is our water user based. So $9.2 million, and as you can see by this, by the year 2032, we are still at a shortfall of around $3 million. Yes, there will be increases from our OSIF grant and our CCBF, but CCBF itself is a very stable grant in looking at it. It does not increase much, and OSIF, it will have a limit as to where it will go, but it still shows that we still will have that shortfall to remediate assets. And as was noticed by the public about Crawford Street, this is one of the reasons why we try to do this 4.2% in order to generate that money so that projects like that can be completed. Just to bring our assets back to the condition that I think the residents of the township expect. So the key highlights with the 2.6% operating, when you take away growth, it works out to be 2%. Looking at the affordability, the maintaining current level of service and inflation, and then the tax increase of 4.2, it works out to be the total of the 6.2% as proposed and what was put forward in the budget direction to council. And now I'll just ask for public input on the capital budget. I will make one note that I received one request / comment as to why the Zion line from West Ross Road to Forest Falls Road was not included in the lists of roads for 2025. I think it's kind of already been noted for the help with Crawford Street as an example. It was up to a certain number of roads and the actual cost of the piece of road and the current level and condition of what it was to be proposed to. But I'll have the manager of Public Works make a comment to that one, please.
Yes, yeah. So Zion line for section from West Ross to Forster Falls Road is on our radar. It's been included, I believe, last 3 years in our list because it's one of our high priority roads. Just only with the budget, it wasn't included as we're trying to go with our lowest, with our worst ranked roads that from our PCI index, paving condition index. Sorry. But it's one of our plans in the next couple of years.
Good, thank you, Treasurer. And just before we leave staff doing the presentation piece, I just want to talk about Crawford just a little bit more. I was also under the impression that the cost of doing that road had to include the underground infrastructure. Therefore, we're working on other sources of grants in order to be able to fund that complete. Don't just do the road and the underground infrastructure at the same time. Can staff confirm that approach?
Yes, so Crawford was included in a funding that we applied for the housing enabling water systems fund that we applied in the spring of 2024. We were not successful due to the grant that closes. The phase intake 2 of the same grant closes at the end of the month, and staff are going to be applying for the same grant that includes Crawford, along with roads such as Simpson, Jason, and Meadow Street. So we were applying for that again, and if we're successful, we'd come back and that would be included in the next year's in 2026 budget.
Good. So we're acknowledging it is on the list. It's very high priority, but we're looking for the other sources of funding to be able to afford it. We don't want to do the road part and then tear it up to do the water line at some future point. Okay. Good. What I'll do, Public input. Mrs. Burns, do you have any public input on capital? None? Excellent. In light of what we did earlier with operating, I'll open it up to council if there's questions or comments that you want to make in addition to what we've had already. I've got none. Okay.
All right.
I'm just going to check my notes here before.
Yep.
The only comment I'll make is just, Superintendent Nicholson highlighted it, the 22,500 that we're having to put aside for the landfill ECA amendment confirmed to me that that's essentially the province charging us a fee to represent the work that they have to do in order to approve that application.
Yes, so this is a technical amendment, so to the landfill's ECA, so it requires technical review by the Ministry of Environment's reviewers, so that is the fee for that. So it's a set fee and it's dependent on what sort of work is being reviewed, and as soon as you start reviewing anything to do with landfill footprint and wells and those sorts of things, that's the price.
Right, so provincial cost recovery. Perfect. Okay, there's no other questions, comments, or input? Are we prepared to do one more section and then we can take a short bio break? I'm seeing no resistance. Let's go, Treasurer.
Perfect. I will make one note that there was a few chunks of road that were noted by the Manager of Public Works as costs. So Government Road, Fortress Falls Road to Fletcher at a value of $325,000. Mindview Road, Magnesium Road to Acres at $360,000. Urban was Cowley Street of design of just $50,000. Simpson Street, the project cost is about $1 million. Hume Street, $750,000. Crawford Street, new project cost around $2 million. And Stewart Street around $230,000. It's just an illustration of the actual costs that are out there for what is needed to do these projects, and why the importance of the 4.2 and getting as many government grants as possible, why it's such an important piece, and why staff push very hard to try and get those government grants to come in to revitalize these assets. The other piece I'll talk to is just, this is a comparison of what my projected residential tax rate would be based on growth, based on the current the assessment roll book for 2024 calculated up using the new creation. So at $100,000 assessment, you would see an increase of $45.44 on $100,000. The median tax or median single family detached assessment, which is for the entire municipality, I get this from our calculation, is $179,000. So the taxation they would see on that type of property is $1,393.10. That's an increase of $81.33. At the very end of this presentation, I have another slide that shows what the actual median value is for a property in Cobden or Beachburg. And the reason I show that is to compare to the water sewer rates, and that's why you'll see the change between this number and the actual end number. So the next section we move into, if there are any questions on that section? Okay, we'll just move on to water and wastewater. So through the usage of the OSIF funding, we were able to stabilize the water and wastewater increase rates at 3%. As always, the driving factors are the aqua contracts, our operator contract, and debentures for both services. They're two of the biggest costs of the system in years that we do not do capital works, and there's very little capital works that's proposed for 2025 at this point in time. So we'll just look at the water rate increase history. So you can see for water, the rate study recommended in 2020 an increase of 20%, and the actual was 21%. In 2021, it was 10% recommended, and council approved 9%. In 2022, the rate study recommended 10%, and then there was a 2% actual increase. The following year in 2023, it was 9.3% actual and 10% was recommended. This was kind of a rebound year of trying to catch back up to where it was expected. And then again in 2024, same situation. It was 8.5%, recommended 10. And then proposed for this year, they recommended 8%. However, with the utilization of the OSIF funds, we're able to kind of stabilize that rate at 3%. I left in the 2026 to 2029 proposed per the rate study, where it said 6% down to 3%, and where the proposed could range from 8.8 to 6.9. And the reason I left that in is because we're currently going through a new wastewater study and rate study. So I wanted to just illustrate the way the current rate is and what it comes down to. So under wastewater, 2020, council approved the recommended increase. In 2021, 50% of the recommended increase was approved. In 2022, the full 5%, both matched. In 2023, there was a bit of catch-up required, so it wound up being a 12% increase where the rate study recommended 4. And then 2024 was a similar situation, 12.55, where it was recommended 3. This year, it recommended 2, and we were able to sit it at a 3% increase, again, utilizing OSIF funds. 2026, 2029 is the proposed 3 down to 2.75, and the rate study is listed as 2% per year for 26, 27, 28, and 29. Again, we're going through the renewal of that study, and like was noted in the Water Wastewater Task Force comments, it is to try and determine what that rate should be now that new assets have been fully integrated into our operations. The biggest increase on the wastewater side was the actual wastewater treatment plant, as this rate study predated the full implementation of the new wastewater treatment plant. So this is a comparison of number of units between 2024 to 2025. So you can see the only change was our residential, and we only increased 3 units over the year, or 3 residential units. All other categories remain the same. So at that 3% increase, this is what it would look like for 2025. So your 2024 residential rate was $1,173.33. The 2025 proposed would be $1,208.53, which is a total increase of $35.20, or a billing change every 2 months of $5.87. So the residents of Beachburg and Haley's, this is the way increase they would see per billing. And the same calculation works all the way down through all the rate categories of 3%. So you can see here, my more focus is the 2025. The total revenue is $1.496602 million. User fees of that is $1.3777 and then OSIF transfer of $100,502. The fire department usage, again a transfer from operating, the general budget of $10,000, and then there are water connect and penalty piece, which was not allocated directly to this budget before, is being allocated here now of $8,000. So a good portion, $118,000, gets added in as new revenue, which offsets the need to increase the actual rates to the users. So salary accounts for $48,950, as noted at the start of the presentation. The FTE is down 0.01 because we removed an asset management coordinator portion. Contract, which is still up for negotiation, so this number may change, of $598. Debt payments, which is our debentures, of $207,550. Electricity and gas, $74,400. You'll notice that there's been really no change over year, because at this point it looks like we've estimated almost perfectly for what it will be for 2024, so there's really no change needed. So other, this category pulls into our repairs and maintenance of capital, and these are capital requests come to us from our operator, Aqua, of $226,025. And with this amount to transfer to of OSIF, it allows us to create a transfer to reserves of $341,677. This allows us to look at other projects, capital projects coming down the line, and able to finance those assets without having to debenture them. And I'll use Crawford Street again as an example. If we are doing in Crawford Street and we need to do water and wastewater lines in the ground on that road, but we did not have the funds to fund the entire road, of the upper surface. If we have the funds to fund the pipes in the ground, we can use those reserve funds to fund that portion, not have to debenture that and create another cost to those users. Those reserve funds can be used to spend that. We can debenture the top half if we had to, but it's less of an impact to the water wastewater rate users. Those long-term debentures are what causes headache because of the actual infrastructure that needs to be replaced and continually paying for them over time. So this reserve kind of allows this cushioning effect. So it's prepaid for. So one of the capital projects that's requested for the water system is generator fencing at Cobden. So there's a backup generator for the system. Currently it's unfenced, and they would request a fence to be put up around it. And the cost that they have earmarked for that is $15,000. The next category I move into is wastewater. And you'll notice there's only been one unit increase for wastewater over 2024. The difference between why you've seen 3 for water and only 1 for wastewater is because the other 2 increases in water could have either happened in Haley's or Beachburg, and that's why there's only a water side. And this one would be construction that happened in Cobden. So for 2024, the rate was $1901.73 for residential. It would move to for 2025 to $1958.78, which is a total increase of $57.05. So per billing would be $9.51. Again, we go through the wastewater piece of total revenue of $1.413 million. The OSIF transfer portion for this is $278,318. This is directly put into paying for debenture debt. So it's our interest and penalty piece. And then our penalty charges are being reallocated here of $7,600. So salary is $19,020. FTE goes down 0.1 because of the removal of asset management coordinator from this to the general budget. Contract, which is still under negotiation, $473,950. So it's just a placeholder at this point. Electricity and gas, $1,391. Debt, $318,000. Others, which is repairs and maintenance and capital, which I'll list the capital shortly, $230,650, and then it allows for a transfer to reserves of $232,848. And this is the big point to note is if you notice 2024, $12,400 was all that could be reallocated to reserves, and now it's only allocated to reserves should there be a surplus at year end or enough to allow for it. And if there's increased costs, then that would be negated by the actual over expenditure of the system, should any extra costs come in. So the $232,000 is a welcome step into creating that fund to fund future assets through the wastewater side. So there's 2 pieces to the capital project side through the wastewater. Is an electric chain lift, which is to be used by the contractor for doing cleaning of the filter elements. So it's a new piece of equipment. At the cost of $30,000, and the Permeate rotary lobe pump, which I believe is what transfers the waste, at a cost of $35,000. I believe this one is just more or less to sit in inventory so that if it fails, we didn't run into a situation where the lead time and anything else would cause us any other further issues. So I just have this slide that shows a combined rate. So the combined residential is $3,075.06 currently, and it would become $3,167.31. So an annual change of $92.25, or per billing, $15.38. So the residents of Cobden, this would be the increase per billing that they would see. Estimated effect on the median single family, and this is the slide I spoke to earlier, where I'm going based on $198,000 assessment, which is the residences in Cobden and the residences in Beachburg, what they would see. So if you had a municipal tax only, you go from $1,451 to $1,541, increase of $90, or a monthly change of $750. Municipal tax and water, so our Haley's and Beachburg residents go from $26.24.33 to $27.49.53, so an increase of $125.20, or $10.43 a month. And then municipal tax, water, and wastewater, so our Cobden residents would go from $45.26.06 to $47.08.31, so it's an increase of $182.25, or a monthly change of $15.19. I just will make a note that I am only noting municipal tax, water, and wastewater. Any increases that occur to the county rate or education are additional to this amount. Education traditionally has not increased for the past 5 years, and county is looking currently at a 3.25, I believe, increase. And now I'll just open it up for input.
Thank you, Treasurer. And I'll look at our sole member of the public. Any input, any questions that you have? Okay, good. And we'll go to council. Any questions or input at this point in time? Oh, and I recognize that Councillor Bell is back. And we noted the exact time during the presentation, yeah. Good. One point I was going to ask if could be added in the next presentation is the pending or the grants that we intend to apply for this year and the ripple effect it may have on infrastructure. We've mentioned already Crawford, Simpson, can't remember them all, but the 4 that we mentioned already.
Yeah, so there was the grants we were looking for the Crawford, Simpson, those streets. Astrolab was another one. And then there's some recreation grants that we're also looking to apply for refurbs of ice facilities and things like that. We can put it together a slide of what the total cost is and the actual grants that they're applying to it.
Good, and it helps the public to also recognize the importance we have on those. We just can't fund some of them right now without these kinds of inserts. Good. Trigger, any other comments? CAO?
If I could, just as a point of reflection on the water wastewater components, is that we commissioned the township a water wastewater rate study in 2024 with the support of Watson and Associates. So we spoke about that earlier when we spoke about the task force recommendation around rate classes and the like. So that report is not complete yet. So as we move into the end of the year and into 2025, we're going to complete that exercise. And that exercise is going to project out over the next 10, maybe 20 years, what we expect will be the percentage increase to support operation increases and capital investment. So we're projecting now, is it 3% next year, but this study will be the guiding document to try to project beyond 2025. So just wanted to make a note for now, and the influx of the OCIF funds will be included in that report, and it'll help shape how we project and support capital investment in the future. So, success here to some degree at 3%, but we'll see what the outcome of that report is come early part of next year. Thanks.
Excellent. And I would encourage anybody so we don't have to redo what we've already discussed with the task force report earlier in the meeting. But if you're watching now and you're curious, that included 45 recommendations, of which has been alluded to a bit in this public meeting. But take a look at that if you're watching, just to get some more insight in terms of how we are keeping it to a very small increase of 3% based on some of the input of the hard work of those volunteers and staff and our 2 council members. Good. Last chance. Any public input or questions? Good. And Treasurer, I'll pass it back to you for close-up.
Thank you. So this next slide is just the budget schedule again. So it shows the 18th, 2nd, and 16th meeting have been completed. So next, where we'll talk about the budget again is November 20th, where we'll compile all the public input that's come forward. And we'll review any changes that have happened since our original presentation and this presentation. And final decisions can be created and direction can be given by council. And then on December 4th, should all things go well, we'll look to be passing the 2025 budget bylaw at that point in time without the need for a special meeting or anything like that. And thank you.
Excellent. And I will just conclude the public meeting by saying a huge thanks to staff. I know a huge amount of work goes into this, especially when you start to forecast the following year at this point in time. But I think it's much appreciated and gives us as council the opportunity to really steer the ship, not on a day-to-day basis, but into the future. which is very important when you're talking capital. Excellent. CAO.
Could just one last point, so we're going to follow up this presentation to the members of council with an email. Just if you're seeking some input on what's been presented or any additional projects or considerations, who will be the point of contacts, whether it's Public Works or Fire, then we'll guide you to who you can converse with, whether it's with our treasurer. And we're also going to post the presentation on our website and give a mechanism by which people could provide more input. So we are accepting some input into the budget over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll include that in our social media posts as well. So we encourage the public who are not attending today to provide some input into the process. Thanks.
Excellent, CAO. Thank you for that. Seeing none, we'll now formally close our public meeting at 7:42 p.m. Before we get back into it, I'm going to need another bio break, so I'm just going to suggest another short recess. Use the washrooms, and we'll come back in and finish. No, we already put that in the adoption of the agenda. Excellent, and welcome back to the Township of Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for October 16th. We're going to resume here at 7:48 p.m. Just to give folks a reference point, we just finished item 6.1, which was the draft budget public meeting. We concluded that item, and now we're going to go back to the agenda where we paused in order to have the public meeting. We're going to go back, and we're at 9.3, which is the Ontario Minimum Wage Amendment to Payroll Grid. Recommendations of the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the amended Schedule F of Bylaw 2312-1653, Tax and User Pay Budgets. And I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Olmsted, Councillor Tabbert. Oh, and I didn't even. Good, and this is going to the Treasurer.
Thank you. So as you all know, as of October 1, the Ontario government passed legislation to change the municipal wage from the 16.55 to 17.20. Accounts for a 3.9% increase. So every year we pass a bylaw stating all of the salaries for township employees. And in 2024, I amalgamated or added a separate schedule to that to include student wages and the steps that included within that, just so that it's approved by council as to what the rate is. And it allows for a 3% increase between the level 1 all the way to level 6 for levels of experience and to whenever we advertise and whenever students apply here. Now with this change, to avoid our actual bylaw from being out of in contravention with the ECA, or the ESA, I should say, in order to keep it accurate, this report is just to amend that amount. So I've changed the original low value from 16.55 to 17.20 and moved up every amount by 3% going forward up to the top level, level 6. And then we'll change all staff who are still following underneath this student category. Going forward, we'll retro all those once it's approved. And I've added a note at the bottom stating that if any other future ESA amendments come through, it will all be automatically adjusted to avoid this having to come back to council for reapproval. This amount will stay the same going into 2025. There will not be an adjustment to this for with the 3% increase or anything like that. That we stick with the minimum wage. So potentially there could be another increase on October 1, but I wouldn't have to bring this report back to council. Any questions?
Thank you, Treasurer. I'll go to the mover first, Councillor Olmsted.
I've got nothing at this time, thank you.
And Councillor Tabbert. Good. Any other questions from members of council? Good. Seeing none, we're going to call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Next item, 9.4, is our library board appointments. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region enact a bylaw to appoint a new member to the Whitewater Region Public Library Board. This is coming to the clerk, right? Oh, sorry. First a mover and a seconder. Mover, Councillor Tabbert, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. And going to the clerk.
So Cindy McAllister, Monica Lagrada, Angela Butterworth, Jim Butterworth, and Mary Clark are current board members. Beverly Lance, who was appointed in March of 2024, resigned from her position October 5th. Councillor Tabbert and Deputy Mayor Rieger serves as council-appointed members. However, Deputy Mayor Rieger will be stepping down as her membership is no longer required due to the board's adequate membership. The board is pleased to welcome Dr. Jamal, and I apologize, Hedjazi. Okay. As a new member, he brings extensive experience in economic matters. His work covers various industries, including automotive, pharmaceutical, energy, and technology, with a particular focus in technology and biochemical sectors. His appointment will further strengthen the board, and his expertise will significantly be an asset moving forward. If council is all in approval, that bylaw is included later in the agenda. And I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Questions from the mover, Councillor Tabbert?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a correction. The Cindy McAllister is the chair and the secretary. Monica Lagrada is the treasurer. Okay, just for
Just so you can correct this for that.
Other than that, nothing.
Noted. And Deputy Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mayor. No, I do just want to add that I have enjoyed working with Chair Cindy McAllister and the library board members for the last year and a half. And again, I welcome our newest member, Dr. Jamal Hijazi. And I just want to add that we do have a dedicated, hardworking group of volunteers who have a genuine interest in supporting and promoting programs to all of the patrons of our local libraries. So thank them very much for all of their service. And like I say, I have appreciated the last year and a half with them. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Deputy Mayor, and appreciate you stepping up to help ensure the board was rounded out to meet the necessary legislation. So thank you for that. Any other comments or questions from members of council? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Good, and it's carried. Next item, 9.5, is the alternative voting and vote counting equipment for the 2026 municipal election. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township Whitewater Region approve the use of internet and voting, telephone voting, and optical scanning vote tabulators for the 2026 municipal election, and that a bylaw authorizing the use of online voting and or optical scanning vote tabulators for municipal elections be enacted. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Trim. Coming back to the clerk.
So staff is requesting the direction for the use of internet and telephone voting and optical scanning tabulators for the 2026 municipal election, and authorize and a bylaw authorizing their use be enacted. The municipal election will be held on October 26. If the township is interested in using alternative voting methods and counting equipment for the election, the Municipal Elections Act provides that the bylaw authorizing their use must be passed no later than May 1st, 2025. Although 2026 does appear to be in the distant future, it is prudent that the township approve voting methods and select a vendor to secure equipment and their expertise. Many vendors put a cap on the number of municipal clients they support during the election, and to ensure effective and efficient customer service. An election working group has been created, and it's the same election group from 2022. So this includes the City of Pembroke, the towns of Petawawa, Renfrew, Arnprior, as well as the townships of Greater Madawaska, Laurentian Valley, and McNabb Braeside, to secure competitive pricing. The group would like to enter into a joint RFP process to select a vendor to provide alternative voting and vote counting equipment. This group is hoping to issue the RFP in Q1 of 2025, early Q1, and hopefully select a vendor by Q2. There isn't a one-size-fits-all for a voting method. All eligible voters should have the opportunity to cast their own ballot if they choose to. Eligible voters may not always be able to come to our voting locations for a variety of reasons, including mobility limitations, out of town for work, personal matters, health concerns, if they own property here but live in another municipality. Internet and telephone voting will address these concerns. Staff is recommending that the telephone option for 2026 still be used as in the 2022. For example, in the 2022 election, 247 people actually did use the telephone method. It is recommended that internet and telephone voting is used until the end of day on election day. Paper ballots with tabulators will be available election day and at advanced polls at Westmeath and Beachburg, and the two care facilities that they will also use paper ballots with tabulators. Small note that the 2026 municipal election will see a change in development with the voters list. Elections Ontario is now taking over the responsibility of maintaining the voters list from MPAC. You can check to see if you're on the list, add yourself to the list, and update your address if you've recently moved here. Electronic tabulators were proven to be precise, easy to use, and capable of generating the final election tally very quickly following the close of votes. The work at the voting place is also considerably reduced as a daunting task of manually counting ballots and tabulating the votes cast is not required. So if approved, a bylaw will come forward at the November 6th meeting. And with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Clerk. And I'll go to Deputy Mayor for any comments or questions.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Good. And Councillor Trim, you the seconder?
Yes, I think that if we approve this, that voting in our municipality will be all computer-based. And as such, I think that the bylaw, which includes recount provisions, is redundant. I can't see how a recount, if there was any kind of a change in a recount, it would invalidate the whole election process. So I can't see why we would have that in place if we go to a total computer-based voting system. In my case, if I may, at the last election, the bylaw said that if there was less than 10 separating two candidates, then there would be an automatic recount. Well, if there had been any discrepancy, all of the votes on the tabulated ballots would have been in question. Not just the two that were close, but everybody's. So I can't see, I mean, I'm saying this respectfully because I don't understand how a recount would be needed. It is, in my opinion, redundant. So I'm wondering if that could be investigated. And if I'm right, then I suggest we change the bylaw. The bylaw would be in force, of course, if we didn't approve a complete computer-based voting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good. So your proposal doesn't influence this resolution on the table. You're proposing that should this pass, a subsequent review of the bylaw related to recounts be brought forward for review in consideration of how this resolution passes, or if it passes, yeah.
You've summarized that very well. Thank you.
Good. And Clerk, that's procedurally correct?
That's exactly, there is a recount policy, so we could bring that forward and re-examine it.
Good. CAO, you're ready to make a comment?
Yeah, just for the general public that are watching, that if I understand the provincial legislation properly, is that we have a policy that is, our policy is enabled by the province who says you could have a policy, but there is still recount measures that could be enacted by the province. So whether we have a policy or not, there's still opportunities for recounts through a provincial body. But certainly in our next report, perhaps through you, the clerk, we could look at that policy and see if it's redundant or not. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Councillor Trim. Any other questions? Yeah, Councillor Tabbert.
But in this, it says that we're going to continue with paper ballots. Am I missing something?
Sorry, I'm going to let the clerk respond to that one.
Correct, but we will be using tabulators, or hopefully be using tabulators to count the ballots. So they won't be manually counted. It'll be going through the tabulators, all paper votes.
CAO, yes.
Yeah, just so, an example, a case in point is at our last election, we had two candidates that were within 10% of each other in the number of votes. That our policy required a recount. So that recount, what we did was we had the internet submissions and the phone submissions. They didn't change. We can't recount those. But we had filled out tabulator forms, which we repassed through the tabulator a second time. That was the recount. But, for the public watching and for council, the numbers were identical from the date of the election to the recount date. So it was successful in that avenue, but that is what I think the recount would consist of if we move forward. Thanks.
And I'll just emphasize again, this does not change the resolution on the table. It's a subsequent discussion. I think it's worthwhile to go back and review policy, reflect on the provincial requirements as well. But again, it doesn't influence this resolution. Any other questions, comments from council? Yeah, Councillor Olmsted.
So, and I'm sorry, I just want to be clear. So it sounds like there's no changes to the 2022 process whatsoever? Right, okay, thank you.
Just going to get the clerk to respond to that one on.
I am hoping that we do it exactly the same way we did for the 2022 election. Yep, if you approve it, for sure. It worked well.
Good. I get Councillor Olmsted nodding. Any other questions or comments? I see none. Okay, we're going to call for a vote. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And sorry, just to highlight, in case I'm watching to see if I get everybody voting. If I don't, I will then ask if there's anybody not in favor of it. So the pause is, I think, just the timeline for the Zoom to react, for me to count the hands. Okay, good. Next item on the agenda is number 10, notice of motion. And I'll just scan my council chambers and online. Is there any notices of motions from any member of council? Okay, and we do acknowledge, I talked to the CAO before, we do have a number of outstanding notices of motion that are still being worked on by staff and tracked. If you're curious about your specific one, please reach out to the CO directly. But I acknowledge tonight there is no additional notices of motion. Okay. Next is correspondence. There are a number of information items, and there are some that are going to likely encourage some discussion. So we're going to go through these item by item. So the first one is the new uniform and civilian collective agreements and 2025 annual billing from the OPP. This was received since our last budget review, so I'm going to turn it over to the treasurer just to provide some insights to council.
Thank you. So these letters, the first letter was actually, I believe, has already come to council before, and it was talking about the through the union agreements and negotiations with the police service board and the civilian union, they have ratified their rates as to what their increases from salaries from 2023 up to 2026. So 2023 is 4.75, 2024 is 4.50, and then 2.50, I believe, or 2.75 for 2025 and 2026. The reason that I brought these letters, the older letter and this newest letter back is because we just received our annual billing, which I alluded to in the budget meeting. And there was a significant increase in it, partially due to the fact that they increased, they had to do a reconciliation for 2023 and account for that increase, but also because in 1 year, we're picking up the increases for 23, 24, and 25. So right there is 14% in one jump. So our total billing went up 22%, 22.6%, which accounts to, in overall terms, went from 1.01 to $1.24 million. $240,000 increase, which accounts to about a 3.18% levy increase. We are not the only municipality that had this. I've been on the group chat with every municipality from here to every border of this province, and it is the norm. And there's lots of questions about it. I will be going through a webinar piece that they're going to describe how this increase. I don't think there's anything that's going to really surprise me, but I'm not sure what the other mitigation ways we could do this. So on November 20th, whenever we come back to council, I'll show what the actual amounts are and give what options council can just try and work through to either increase the budget, like the actual levied amount, cut from other places, or fund through different methods, but I'll bring those methods back at that point in time. Just noting that it's a substantial increase that was unforeseen. I'd already done a 3% increase, but it did not account for the 20% on top of that they thought of. Thank you.
And I'm just going to pause. There's a number of items here, so if there's any input from council, let's hear it now, rather than wait till the end of the information items. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next item. And sorry, Treasurer, I get the concurrence from the approach is correct. Find out more information, come back to us with some options so we consider no later than the 20th of November.
Exactly.
Good, and I'd expect that from a finance lead perspective, you can chat with Councillor Olmsted to help shape that presentation to council. Okay. Good. Next items B and C are two for your information. I won't go into them, but the first is the County Council summary from September 2024. And C is the labor market planning session that I spoke to in the mayor's address. If there are individual questions or comments on either one of those, please reach out to me directly and we can go through anything that's included in there. Next item is D, the call for nominations for the 2024 Warden Community Service Awards. I think these were already distributed to you individually by the clerk. If you know of a community member that you personally wish to nominate or encourage someone else to nominate, that's the information. I believe the deadline is fast approaching. I want to say it's Friday.
November 1st, I thought.
Oh, November 1st. November 1st, good. Okay, so there is some time yet for folks to do that. Good. Next item is G, the Jason Blaine Charitable Fund Committee grant and the Whitewater Seniors Home Support and Active Living received that. I'll get the manager of community services to speak to that, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So our Whitewater Seniors Working Group member, Bonnie, was able to put through an application for the Jason Blaine Charitable Fund Committee. And this is, if you're not aware, there's a golf classic that happens every year in the summer, and it's a annual charity celebrity golf tournament and meet and greet and concert series or concert day. So they've raised funds every year, and the funds come back to the community. So we put through an application, and the Whitewater Seniors and Home Support and Active Living were successful in $1,500 worth of funding, which will go to food security for our Whitewater seniors. So it'll be used for Meals on Wheels and frozen meals and as required by staff and to use for community members.
Excellent. Any other comments on that one? Seeing none, thank you to the working group and the volunteers on that group that go and put forth the effort to apply for these grants. Much appreciated. So thank you, Stephanie. Excellent. The next item, item F, is the OPP notice of motion for funding support from the municipality of Tweed. This was distributed by the clerk as resolutions that have been passed in other municipalities and circulated for our information. When I saw this one, I immediately thought it might apply, especially given the treasurer's previous comments. So I asked the clerk to put it on the agenda to see if there was any member from council that wanted to speak to this. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I am definitely in favor of supporting the motion from the municipality of Tweed. I do have a recommendation, Mayor, if I may, to read and see if I can get a mover and a seconder on the motion. And the recommendation is that the Township of Whitewater Region call on the Ontario government to immediately implement sustainable funding for small rural municipalities by reabsorbing the cost of the Ontario Provincial Police Force back into the provincial budget with no cost recovery to municipalities. And further, the council directs staff to circulate the resolution to Premier Doug Ford, the Minister of Solicitor General, Minister of Finance, and to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and all municipalities in Ontario. If I could have a mover and a seconder.
I'll take you as the mover on that one.
I will, thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Tavert. Good, let's put it out for discussion. Are there other comments from members of council? Sorry, and I'll go to the seconder first. I'll come back over to the other side. Do you have anything else to add? Councillor Trim and then Councillor Olmsted.
I'm just wondering that list to be circulated, should we include our local MPP? Would that be of benefit?
Perfect. Consider that a friendly amendment. I'm getting nods from the mover and the seconder, so done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, I think that this is the perfect type of cost that needs to be back uploaded to the province, as we have zero control over the cost. We have no input to it. We're handed a bill every year that we have to pay. So I strongly support this recommendation that we hand it back up to the province. Thank you.
Good. Any other comments? Good. I'll just close with, I am of the exact same mind. And I think just this $240,000 increase, a 3.18% increase in our levy, when we're struggling to try to make it affordable in rural Ontario, and they're asking the property tax to absorb that increase, I think we need to re-examine this, and this might be the impetus. So I'll just verify, and I can't remember when the circulation, did it include the other counties or other municipalities in the county?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Good. If there's no other, sorry, I'm looking, I missed Councillor Bell. Did you have your hand up and I completely missed you, Councillor Bell? No, you're fine. Okay, good. If there's no other comments, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? It's carried. Excellent. Good. The next item is G, cellular coverage concerns from the Township of Tillsonburg. And this was, again, resolution passed from other municipalities. Councillor Moore had indicated that he had wanted it added to the agenda. I don't know if you have any additional comments or you just wanted to solicit to see if others had.
Well, just that I guess them, the same as us, like we're sort of sitting in limbo. Everybody's promised us the world going back to 2020, and it's very slow at uptake. So I think maybe this will help keep it to the forefront so we don't get lost. Like to have all our towers completed, now they're saying by 2026. Well, they weren't saying that in 2020, and here we are 2026. I have a funny feeling it's going to be extended, and I'm hoping not. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we were taking part.
Good, excellent. So from a queue perspective, I know that we have 6 or 7 locations approved in the township already for land use. 7. And I saw Crane putting up one today on Westmeath Road. So I know that they're being impacted. There's one already done on Yakabuski Road. So they are coming in. They just may not all be finished until 2025. Does this trigger any member of council that wants to do a resolution or? Good. Any other comments from staff?
I think I seen a table that indicated our 4 or 5 projects in a public document in the last couple weeks. So maybe if I could find that, I'll share it with council, which gives a timeline when they're going to complete the projects in our community amongst all of Renfrew County. So leave that with me and I'll make a note to try to distribute that to council.
Excellent. And then if that triggers something, Councilor Moore, you can bring it back to council. Good. The next item is HIJK. Those 4 are all AMO response letters to delegations. And again, we're just re-highlighting our message, asking them if they would like to come for a visit so we can muckle onto them, and thanking them for their time. So if that creates any, yes, Councillor Trim.
Mr. Mayor, there may be an H, that might be a typo there. The AMO response of Tourism, Culture and Gaming, that wouldn't be a letter from the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility. I think that's just so we don't have to correct it next time, if I'm right.
You're saying the link title is incorrect?
Yeah, that's what Councillor Trim, if I is referring to. So if the title says Ministry of Seniors, but it's in fact the Ministry of Gaming, so we could just edit the agenda and republish.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you for that catch. The letter is correct. I just pulled the link open again. Thank you.
That's
Any other
the right
comments?
letter.
Sorry? Say again?
I'm just saying it's the right letter, it's just the wrong link. That's all.
Perfect. Good. Good. No other comments on those two. The last two are, the first one is the Remembrance Day ceremony, the Legion Branch 550 with respect to Remembrance Day coming up for 2024. And I think the CAO is going to, clerk is going to speak to it.
I could certainly speak to it. I conferred back with our clerk earlier today, but we do purchase wreaths for each of the different ceremonies in our community. So no need to respond to this to staff. We will be purchasing a wreath for every ceremony in the community. I believe there's 3 or 4 of them, so they'll be purchased. Thanks.
Clerk, yeah.
I will also send an email to find out who's attending what. So we do this up behind the scenes, so we're good. Thanks.
Excellent. Good. Thank you. And the next item is just a small business mastery. I think it's programming. I can't speak to that one, but if there's any questions, we can ask staff to investigate. I see none. Okay, we'll move on to announcements, and we'll start with the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I do have 2 announcements this evening. First, we are excited to announce that several individuals from Whitewater Region will be competing in the rafting portion of the Pan Am Games in Pucon, Chile, from October 30th to November the 2nd. And the mixed teams includes our very own Fire and Admin Assistant, Julie Batala, Gwyn Ashcroft, Wesley Etherton, and Kaylee Marland, all of whom are proud residents of our townships. So we wish them safe travels and best of luck in competing with these athletes. And second, we're happy to inform that the interview panel for the recruitment of the driver operator position has successfully hired Grant McNulty. Grant is joining the township on October 21st from the township of Admaston Bromley, where he has been employed since 2004. He has various skills related to the public works field and has completed the maintenance and construction sections of the Ontario Good Roads Association T.J. Mahoney Road School. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Deputy Mayor. And Councillor Bell.
Nothing for me today. Thanks.
Excellent. Good. Thank you for logging on today from work. We appreciate that. Councillor Tabbert.
I just have one on October 26th. There is a Foresters Falls Fun Day and Barbecue in Foresters Falls. Thank you.
Good. Councillor Olmsted.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Nothing. I forgot my calendar at home.
Yes, I can't repeat this too often. The Taste of the Valley, of course, is Saturday, and I would ask my fellow councillors to do everything they can to promote this event. It's just a wonderful time in our community, and the weather is going to cooperate, and so I'm hoping to see all of you there on Saturday, and anybody who's listening too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trim. Excellent. And I have no announcements to add. Oh yes, Clerk. Is there anything you want to highlight off of our? Yes, please.
The Haunted Haley Eve. It will be held at the Haley Fire Department at 17 Fire Hall Lane on the 26th. Bring your kids.
Excellent. Thank you. No other comments? Good. Item number 13, bylaws. So we have 3 listed on our agenda today. The recommendation is that be it resolved that the bylaws listed on the October 16th, 2024 agenda be taken as read and passed. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Trim. Any final comments, questions on those bylaws listed on our agenda? Good. Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It's carried. Closed session. Clerk, there's no closed session tonight, correct? There is no closed session, yes, okay. And, sorry? And therefore, we are adjourned at 8:23 PM. Thank you to staff and council members for staying for this very, very fruitful evening. I think the public meeting on the budget and the task force recommendations, an excellent amount of detail to go through. So have a great evening, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.